the Vantage Forum 2017. It's a pleasure to have all of us here this morning. In a couple of minutes, the event will start officially. We apologize for starting some minutes behind schedule. We had some logistics issues with one of our presentations. Having said that, I hope you're looking forward to a great time at the forum this morning. I want you to help me look at your neighbor and please help me welcome somebody to your right and to your left. Tell them you're welcome to Vantage Forum. Can I request that we all stand as we say a word of prayer as we kick off the event? Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for your presence in this place this morning and in our lives, in our careers and businesses. We thank you for bringing us into 2017. We commit this forum into your hand. We ask that you have your way in the midst of us today. We pray a blessing over every business represented here and every career represented here. We pray a blessing over all of our speakers this morning. We ask that you speak through them, inspiring words that will lift someone out of the pit into the place that you have prepared for them. We thank you that you will make this time a time of new ideas, actionable ideas, and that you will prepare someone to lay hold on what is ahead. We thank you because 2017 will be a time of profiting for every business, and your name alone will be glorified in the precious name of the Lord Jesus. Can we say a better amen? Yeah. Please, you may have your seat. Again, I want to welcome everyone very specially. I believe that the forum this year is going to be very inspiring. Our speakers are well prepared and geared up to, give us relevant information that we need to make the right decisions that will help us to maximize all the opportunities that God will bring our way this year. I'm going to hand us over to the chairperson of our organizing committee and the head of this year's forum, who in his own right is a professional accountant and also doubles as a pastor at the Elevation Church. He's done a great job with the team to put this year's event together. Please make welcome, for the sake of this event, Mr. Tunji Iola.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you once again for coming. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the event and then bring up the first speaker, okay? So this year, we've said that the theme for this year is New Frontiers, New Possibilities. And the reason we've done that is because we understand that even though our country is potentially in a recession, right? But even in the recession, yesterday I was looking at the GDP growth rates for last year. So even with the entire economy being in recession, some sectors are still doing okay, all right? And so this year we're talking about, so let's focus on what will go well and what is working, okay? And that's why we're here this morning. Our array of speakers are going to do a lot of good talking about this topic this morning, okay? So just to tell you how the day is going to go, we have 4 speakers lined up, all right? And each of them will come and speak. And at the end of all that, we'll have a panel session where you get an opportunity to ask them questions. We're also live on social media, okay, and we're broadcasting this as well. We're streaming this, so your friends at work will just tell you that they saw you where you were this morning, okay? If you're tweeting, the hashtag to use is hashtag Vantage Forum, okay? So we'd like you to tweet. If you learn anything, something catches your attention, please put it in social media. Let's make this very interactive and useful for the people who are not here, okay? So to start the event this morning, we have with us Dr. Doyin Salami. We're going to play a video introduction of him, and then he will come off stage and he will be speaking to us about presenting the economic and business outlook for Nigeria for 2017. Thank you.
Right. A very good morning to you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me, even though the year is already almost a month gone, I crave your indulgence to still wish everybody a very happy new year and pray that this will be the best year yet for each and every one of us and our families. I'm going to try and do essentially two things this morning. But I've been told I have about 20 minutes, and so I'm good for that. In that time, I'm going to try and answer, I'm going to try and discuss with you two questions. Where do I think the economy is headed? And secondly, and this I think is more useful for the individuals and businesses that are represented, what can you, should you be doing about whatever we say? Now, in order to understand where the economy is headed, I think we need to understand where all right. So this has to be more interactive than I thought. All right. Now, for you to understand, that's fine. Thank you. Now, to understand where the economy is going, let me start by discussing with you what actually drives the economy, because I think that's more useful as a background. If I simply delve into where I think it's going without discussing this, then it may be a little disjointed. What you can see here is a graph which suggests to you that the international environment is very important for Nigeria. And there are 4 dimensions of the international environment that we always have to keep our eyes peeled for. The first is what happens to international policy. For example, a lot is being said about how a Trump presidency might pan out for Nigeria, both in terms of the policies and in terms of his preferences. That's going to be important. Beyond that, it's going to be important to also know what international trade, especially oil prices, are going to do where Nigeria is concerned. Because as you know, oil is important to us, not as a source of economic activity per se, it's only 10% of the economy, but really as a generator of foreign currency and a source of revenue for the government. The third dimension that's important in terms of the international environment is what's going to happen in terms of capital flows. Will Nigeria attract capital flows? And then, of course, the fourth element of it, which probably is the most stable, is what happens to diaspora transfers. Now, I think I should quickly say now that the summarization of what the international environment holds is it's less bright for Nigeria than it has been recently. Why? Let's start with the one everybody talks about, which is oil prices. I was reading in the media today that even the Minister of State for Petroleum for Nigeria thinks that oil prices may go to maybe as high as $65 a barrel. Okay. In 2014, oil prices were in excess of $100 a barrel. In May 2014, the federal and state governments shared in 1 month 1 trillion naira. These days, they are lucky when the numbers get to 400, 420 billion. that gives you a very clear sense of where oil situates as far as government spending is concerned, or government revenues and therefore spending. The second part that oil plays, and which is one of the reasons why we've really got a major headache at the moment. I'm just trying to quickly find capital flows. I think I may have gone past it. Forgive me, I'm not going to go through this slide by slide. So, okay, this is it. If you look at that, what it immediately tells you is why we've got a problem with foreign currency, why we've got a problem with FX rates. In 2013, we earned about $97 billion. 90 of it was from crude oil exports. In 2016, as of the end of quarter 3, we had done less than $30 billion. Two reasons: oil price down, production for much of the year also down. And so it's important to bear that in mind. But something else that's important to bear in mind in what I've just, in this slide, you will see two things there. FPI, in other words, foreign portfolio investment, and FDI, foreign direct investment. These are inflows into Nigeria in foreign currency that help us. And what you will see, FPI, we've dropped from probably about $16 billion to about 1.5. FDI, less than $1 billion. So you can understand, therefore, why the supply of foreign currency has reduced so sharply, and therefore why FX rates have gone up. That's important to bear in mind for 2017, but I will come back to 2017 in a minute. One other thing that you should please bear in mind, if we move out of the external environment and come local, the domestic environment, this is how the economy is stacked up at the moment. Let me quickly find this. Now, what you see, that pie chart, is very important, because what it tells you is that even though there are 46 sectors in the Nigerian economy, 6 of them, 6 of them account for 80% of our total production. Please remember what I've just said. There are 46 sectors. 6 of them account for 80%. So there are 6 big sectors in Nigeria. The remaining 40 sectors, if they account for 20%, mean that on average they do about half of 1%. So it's a whole stack of very small sectors. Which are the big 6? Agriculture is just under a quarter. Oil and gas is about 10%. Distribution, which they call trade here, is about 17%. Real estate is about 8%. Telecoms, which is ICT, is about another 10%. And so you can immediately see that there is an issue of concentration within the Nigerian economy. So if you are looking for, and by the way, just as an aside, if you are looking for opportunity, there are 4 things to look for. The first, which are the biggest sectors in the economy, because that's where the most activity is ongoing. The second, which are the fastest growing sectors of the economy, because that already begins to show you growth is about also activity and potential. The third, which sectors of the economy are the recipients of capital. It doesn't matter whether the capital is debt, in other words, credit from the banks, or whether it is equity. Okay? And the fourth dimension in looking for opportunity is always to ask yourself, which sectors are the most resilient? And when we talk about resilience, resilience simply speaks to which sectors, when they, first of all, are the last to get into trouble, and when they get into trouble, are the first to come out of trouble. So resilience is important. Growth, the speed of growth is important. The size of the sector is important. And remember what I also said, what was the fourth one? What was the fourth one? Let me start again. Resilience, size, growth, one more. Precisely. Those to which capital is being devoted. And so you already see here the 6 big sectors. Okay? Now, having said that, what's going to be important as far as 2017 is concerned, in terms of where the economy goes, how it gets there? There are a couple of things that are going to be important. The first, for my money, is going to be, what is the role? There are 2 questions I'm going to pose, and each of you, as the year goes along, you can see what the answers are, and then you can decide what happens. The first question is going to be this: what is going to be the role for private capital in Nigeria? Let me re-emphasize that. What is going to be the role for private capital in Nigeria? Why is that important? Let me put it very graphically using this example. All of us complain about infrastructure, or don't we? Power, roads, the whole works. Nigeria has something called the NIMP, the Nigerian Infrastructure Master Plan. That master plan, launched in 2012, envisages that the Nigerian economy, for it to grow sustainably and in a sustained manner, requires to upgrade its infrastructure, because that then makes us competitive in the global economy. And that for us to do that, Nigeria needs to spend roughly $100 billion. Let me repeat that figure. $100 billion every year for 30 years, for 3 decades. In other words, you're looking at something like $3 trillion to be spent on infrastructure over 3 decades. Aha. If it's like that, $100 billion every year. Question is, how much of that $100 billion can the government come up with? Answer: I'm afraid not much. And let me explain why not. You may be aware of the 2017 federal government budget that's already been announced. It's going through the National Assembly for passage now. That budget is about 7.3 trillion naira of government spending at the federal level in 2017. Who are the other spenders? So, 7 trillion. 100 billion is about how much in naira? Come on, guys. Wake up, wake up. Okay, use the exchange rate of 305. Ogao. It's already almost 10 now. You guys should be awake. 30.5 trillion. 30.5 trillion is how much the government needs to spend on, or Nigeria needs to spend on infrastructure. Yet, federal government spending in total, 7.3. State governments, 33 of them have already announced their budgets. They are planning to spend somewhere around about 6.5 trillion. If you add the 2 tiers together, that's about 13. And yet, we need, out of that 13, salaries must be paid. Overheads must be paid. All sorts of other expenditures on schools, on hospitals, all of these must be made. And yet, we need to spend 30 trillion naira every year on infrastructure. It already tells you that if we don't bring private capital into some of these areas, we are not going very far. Which is why I make the point that one of the key drivers of 2017 will be, what is the role for private capital in this economy? Because it is to the extent that we encourage private capital, that is the extent to which we are able to make these kinds of investments and therefore grow our economy in a sustained and sustainable manner. The second key question that we are going to have to ask and answer in 2017 is, what is going to be the role of the price mechanism as far as Nigeria is concerned? How are we going to allocate scarce resources? Are we going to allow markets, well-regulated markets, efficiently regulated markets, transparently regulated markets to allocate resources? Or are we going to allocate resources using pretty much any other means, whether it's transparent, whether it's administrative, whatever it is? And the reason why I draw your attention to this is very simply the following. Today, we've got a fundamental challenge. Remember, I showed you some numbers a few minutes ago that told you that FX is a problem. Today, you look at the FX markets, and those markets are dysfunctional. Why? You don't need to be a genius. One market is 309. Another market is anything between 490 and 498. So which is the real market? Those gaps are too attractive for bad behavior not to occur. And so we would need to close some of these inefficiencies if we are to grow. And the reason why you need to close these inefficiencies is very simple. If you don't, people lose confidence. Imagine if you brought money into Nigeria to invest at 309 or 305, when you could bring it in at 492, you've already lost 40% of the value of that investment. I hope you know that. So these are two fundamental issues. A third issue that will drive Nigeria in 2017 will, of course, be what's going to be oil price. But for Nigeria, there are two headaches with oil. One headache is international prices. And please note the following. The price of oil and its determination, the dynamics of it is changing. Once upon a time, OPEC, of which Nigeria is a member, the Organization of Oil Exporting Countries, of which Nigeria is a member, used to be the primary determinant of oil prices. Today, that's not the case. Yes, OPEC is still very important, but something else has shown up that is creating new problems. Can anybody guess what it is? Precisely, shale gas. 4 years ago, I remember vividly, we used to think about shale and say if oil price is less than $80, shale is not going to thrive. But technology has meant a compression of shale costs. Therefore, shale prices down. Shale price, or the cost of producing shale, is now an effective cap on oil prices. Therefore, we've got a real headache that we cannot continue to rely on oil prices rising and taking us out of trouble. The second challenge we usually have with oil is quantity. Nigeria aspires, our original aspiration was that by 2020 we would be doing 4 million barrels of crude oil per annum. I think we are now clear that's not going to happen. 2020 is 3 years away. It's not going to happen. But even let us say we do 2.2 million barrels. Do the numbers. Currently oil is about 56. Multiply that by 365. Multiply that by 2.2. You are looking at about $50 billion. Whereas when it was $100 per barrel, the same numbers amounted to about $83 billion. So you can see that our fortunes, as far as revenues are concerned, have certainly declined. So oil price is going to be very important. What else? Well, it's also going to be very important what we do as a nation to instill confidence. As I came in this morning, in fact, I received an email at about 5 a.m. this morning announcing to me that Nigeria's rating by Fitch had been downgraded. Now, Fitch is an important dimension that others use in assessing us as a destination. It's about confidence in part, but in a large part. And so if we've been downgraded by one of the major international ratings agencies, we've got to find a way of reinstilling confidence in Nigeria in the international community. That then leads me, what outcomes do I envisage? I'm clear in my mind that any which way we will come out of recession. It's not a matter of prayer. Let me show you. If you look at this, agriculture was growing by almost 5%. Indeed, if you look, let me go back just one slide. One of the major reasons why we are in a recession is that oil, which is the orange line below the zero, diminished by almost 20% for much of last year. So, if you look at it, no matter how this thing cuts, if oil improves in 2017, and it looks like it will, number one, it looks like prices will be higher than in 2016, but number two, it looks like the Niger Delta will be calmer, less disrupted. And so we will see higher production of oil. Between oil and agriculture, the rebound of oil and the continuation of agricultural output, if it continues to grow at 5%, we should be fine. At least we will come out of a recession. So growth will now not be negative. Growth will be positive. The key question now will be this: how much growth are we going to get? The budget assumption is that growth, this economy will grow by 2.5%. I'm not going to dispute that, but I will make one point very clearly to you. Even if we achieve 2.5%, so we agree we will achieve 2.5%. Remember, in 2016, we had diminished by almost 2%. Which means we would have swung in terms of an upswing almost 4.5% between where we ended last year and where we might end this year. Only headache is this: 2%, 2.5% growth with a population growing at almost 2.83% is still a little iffy. It's still a little iffy. One other problem that you should envisage this year is simply this. And this one, you like, you don't like, you will have to deal. What is most important? If you look, Now, what is most important? If you look at these, ignore the columns, because the columns simply deal with crude oil price. Forget that. Look at the two lines. The one that is trending up is inflation. Costs are rising, and we still expect that to happen, to continue in 2017. It may not be as bad as in 2016, but it certainly will continue. There's a big problem when prices are rising. Salaries are not rising. I'm sure you know that. In fact, people are being sacked. Unemployment now is about 13.9%. Underemployment is about 19%. Between unemployment and underemployment, 1/3 of Nigeria's labor force is gone. So we expect prices to continue rising. As I say, maybe not as fast. We almost did 20% in 2016. We may not do that badly. But the other thing that we did in 2016, which is the second line, the line below and going south, is economic activity. The wider the spread between those two lines, cost rising, activity shrinking, profits under pressure. And with profits under pressure, corporates' ability to sustain their labor force under pressure. And yet, remember what I've just told you. The economy will grow, so the bottom line will turn upwards. But we are still likely to see the top line. It won't go north, but it will still be in double digits. Now, what are you supposed to do? I'm going to put 3 strategies on the table for you to think about for your various businesses and endeavors. Number 1, how well do you know your customers? I'm not talking what I call regulatory KYC, know your customers or know your clients. Oh no, I'm not talking, oh, so where do they live, who are they, what are they? No. I'm talking what kind of insights, how intimately do you know your customers? Because it is what you know about your customers. It is how well you know your customers, their behavior, what drives them. Take, for example, I said to you, there are 6 big sectors, so 5 plus 1, that drive output and therefore income. What do you know about the income sources of your own customers? Because if they are in, remember I said 6 sectors. Look at this very quickly. See, I showed you earlier, agriculture is growing, ICT growing, Abi? Now, look, industry, negative. Manufacturing, negative. Look further, government, which is public administration, largely negative. Indeed, even finance, 2 out of the last 3 quarters, negative. Real estate, negative. So what all of this is saying is that unless you know where your customers earn their income from, what is happening in that sector, you could run into trouble. More than that, what do you know about what your customers buy? How your customers buy? Because one of the things that's important now is, does the product you're selling, is it relevant? Let me ask that so that you can hear it well. The product that you are selling, is it relevant to the customer to whom you are selling it? Or at least the customer to whom you are trying to sell it. If it isn't, you're in the wrong business. I hope you understand that. What you are selling, is it? So this now goes to the heart of product and market mapping and matching. You need products, you need a suite of products perhaps, that irrespective of where the economy is, people do business with you. This one is not, yeah, prayer helps, but thinking is important. I know we say it's not our portion. Believe me, it's nobody's portion. But it will become our portion if we refuse to think. So, how much do you know about your customer? What they want, what they need, what they will pay for. There's a second strategy that's very viable at this point. What do you know about your competitors? I hope you understand what I mean. What do you know about your competitors? What are the weaknesses that you have relative to your competitors? Because one of the ways by which you can grow your business is to take the share, the market share of your competitors. You don't have to buy their business to take their market share. The question is, what do you know about them? And let me put this to you very, very clearly. Imagine you wish to take, I'm sure, I always keep forgetting the author of this book, Who Moved My Cheese? The game is not who moved my cheese. The game is who took my cheese.
Farmers into one platform such that for the good of food production, for the good of impacting the lives of the farmers, all of these guys can collaborate in one place and grow food production in the country. With farm crowding, we've built a website that allows people to come online. Now, a farm sponsor or a farm follower goes on the site, picks, for instance, a poultry farm, and says they want to sponsor a farmer through a poultry initiative. They select the number of farm types. So when you select and you pay your money into the platform, the farmer then is notified that he has a partner coming on board. From our own end, we see the partner's profile, and then we associate the partner with one of our key customer engagement officers in the company. So the farmer goes to work, does the entire circle. For maize, it's 6 months. For tomatoes, it's 6 months. For cassava, it's 9 months to a year. And for poultry, it lasts for around 4 months. At harvest, we then mop up the harvest and sell it to off-takers, who then pay us for what.
What do you know? Who are they? What drives their decisions? What drives their income? Why do they patronize you? Why not somebody else? How are economic conditions affecting your customers? There is a brand, I shan't mention its name. It's a premium brand, or now it's been positioned as a premium brand, very popular. 3 years ago, its owners started asking what we call the what, the why, and the how questions. They then added a fourth question: what if? What if Nigeria runs into economic problems? They then quickly concluded that if Nigeria runs into economic problems, affordability will become an issue. And if affordability is an issue, they had better develop a value brand that can hold the customers that may fall out of patronizing their premium brand. I'm sure you all understand what I'm talking about. Today, the value brand is 10% of the market. For you to take on the premium brand, you must first defeat the value brand. So that's what I mean by, what do you know about your customers? What drives them? What drives their purchases? I also said, what do you know about your competitors? Who are they? What's their advantage? What's their strength? What's yours? I always make this point. For those of you who don't like football, forgive me. Remember that season when Arsenal went undefeated? Yeah. The Gunners. Don't worry, I support a football club, which means I really should not like them. And I don't like them. But what's important is this. In the season they went undefeated, they typically won their games by a very limited margin. 1-0 to 1. Why is this important? There are two kinds of games. You can win a game 1-0 or you can win a game 5-4. The game you and I like to watch is 5-4 because plenty of goals. But the problem with 5-4 is that goal number 5, the 9th goal in the series, tends to be scored last minute, extra time, no chance to reply, which makes the outcome uncertain. Which is why what the Arsenal represented that year, and as I think about corporate strategy, what the Arsenal represented was very clear. Every football team is in 3 layers. A defense which starts with the goalkeeper, defenders, blah, blah, blah. It could be keeper plus 4, keeper plus 3, whatever the arrangement. Then the midfield, and then the attack. Abi? If your defense, and modern football now teaches us, you don't win with a leaky defense. Abi? No, you don't win with a leaky defense because both teams are usually almost equally matched, and whoever scores first has the capacity to hold out on the others. And so your challenge, which is why this point about what do you know about your customers and what do you know about your competitors is particularly important. But the other thing that I will add to all of these, if we are going to succeed in 2017, how persistent are we? It's one thing to have the capacity to think, to be able to come up with ideas and notions about what to do. It's another thing to be able to implement what you say you are trying to do. So you've figured out, you've studied your customers, you've studied your competitors, you've figured out what your market and product mappings are. One last very important point. How well do you execute? How persistent are you in execution? I make bold to say this. Strategy doesn't fail most times because the strategies are bad. They fail most times because they are not implemented, or when they are implemented, not implemented properly. And where I put properly, you can add persistently, which is why I ask, are we really persistent? What's your mindset? Because if your mindset is not that of one who's ready to roll up your sleeves, make the sacrifices that are necessary. One thing's become very clear to all of us. When there is a boom, any idiot can manage in a boom. We know who are real managers when the downside arrives. It is at the downside that we know who has the skill, that we know who has the talent, who has the capacity, who has the willingness, who has the heart. If you're not going to be persistent, no matter what I tell you about the outlook, you're not going to get very far. And as far as the outlook is concerned, take away. Yes, we will see growth in 2017. Yes, prices will still continue to rise. And price rising, by the way, means one thing. For the sake of argument, so prices rise 15%. Remember I said salaries are not rising, so you can't pass it on. What it means is you have got to be innovative enough to cut your own costs to at least match the increase in price, or else your profits suffers and suffers grievously. Because when people tell themselves, oh, it's about creativity, it's about innovation, these are nice buzzwords. But believe me, they actually have practical application. You cannot, if you are not willing to ask yourself, why are we doing it like this? Must we do it like this? Are there no better ways of doing it? You're not yet ready to be creative. You're not yet ready to be innovative. You're not yet ready to take on the challenge that keeps you safe in the marketplace. I'm an Ijebu boy. Making my matter worse, I'm an economist. Yes. Both training and DNA are perfectly aligned. To make my matter doubly worse, I hold a doctorate degree in economics. Exactly. Don't worry. I will find penance eventually. But the elders in my place make a series of remarks, but this one is important. I will speak this first in Yoruba and then make a very bad job of translating it. They say, "Tó bá ń gúnyán nú ewé, tó ń sebẹ̀ nínú èpo ẹ̀pà, ẹni máa yó, let me interpret it. Ewe leaves. Imagine trying to pound yam, trying to make pounded yam with leaves as your pestle and mortar. The moment you strike the first blow, the leaves scatter. But they say some people will achieve it. Imagine granite. You know, when the shell, you see, yes, it's hollow, which is what keeps the shell, the nuts. But it's a very small container. It can hardly contain anything. But they say, these are my elders, that if they pound yam using leaves, which seems an improbability, and they cook the stew for the meal using the shell of a groundnut, which again suggests nothing is about to happen, that despite these seeming odds, notwithstanding these difficulties, that even in those set of circumstances, those who will eat to satisfaction will do so. The question is, are you ready? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Another round of applause. All right. I think that was a very brilliant start. Can you put your hands together one more time for Dr. Salami? Just a few housekeeping points, and then we'll move on right to the next item on the agenda. If you saw our advert, we mentioned that we have a number of we have 3 showcase companies: Farm Crowdy, Andela, and We Cyclers. Right? So we're going to be showing videos about them, telling you about what they do and how they did it, and how they came about the ideas. Right? So we want you to learn from businesses that we consider as innovative and are doing something. So please watch out for that. I know at least 2 to 3 people who are sitting in the audience right now who, after having attended an edition of Vantage Forum previously, they got business ideas and they started businesses that are thriving. So I encourage you this morning to really pay attention to what our speakers are saying. There is something in there for you that is very valuable. About the slides, we've heard questions about slides. We will speak to our speakers after the event. As soon as we get permission to circulate the slides, for everyone who registered for this event today, we will send them to you. If you don't get permission to send, we will just let you know how that goes, okay? For questions and answers, our ushers are holding pieces of paper. They'll pass them around. You can write down your questions. They'll take them to the back. We'll screen and sort the questions. And when the time comes, we'll be able to answer your questions. All right, so the next thing that we have on the agenda right now, we're going to watch one of our showcase companies. You will see them come up on the video. And the one that we're watching is Farm Crowdy. You will get an understanding of what Farm Crowdy is all about, what they do, and how they do it. And I think you will be inspired to do something different. Thank you.
Farm Crowdy is a digital agriculture platform that launched on the 14th of September 2016. Prior to that, we were looking at a way where we could bring farm sponsors, landowners, farmers into one platform, such that for the good of food production, for the good of impacting the lives of the farmers, all of these guys can collaborate in one place and grow food production in the country. With Farm Crowdy, we've built a website that allows people to come online. Now, a farm sponsor or a farm follower goes on the site, picks, for instance, a poultry farm, and says they want to sponsor a farmer through a poultry initiative. They select the number of farm types. So when you select and you pay your money into the platform, the farmer then is notified that he has a partner coming on board. From our own end, we see the partner's profile, and then we associate the partner with one of our key customer engagement officers in the company. So the farmer goes to work, does the entire cycle. For maize, it's 6 months. For tomatoes, it's 6 months. For cassava, it's 9 months to a year. And for poultry, it lasts for around 4 months. At harvest, we then mop up the harvest and sell it to off-takers, who then pay us for what we've bought, and then we pay the farmer 40% of the profit that comes from the harvest. 40% of the profit goes to the farm sponsor, including his original investment, and then Farm Crowley keeps 20% for its work and its struggle.
First, we meet with the farmers. We ask about the history of their farmland. We go to do inspections on the farm. We carry out different soil tests to see if their farm would be suitable for the kind of farming we would like to do. And also we try to find out the history about the farmland, because some of these farmlands, there are a lot of family disputes about it. So we want to know what we are really getting ourselves involved with. For the farmers we deal with, we are also particular about the number of years of experience they have in farming, so we know who we are dealing with as well.
Building our technology, we had to go through the phase of understanding who our partners will be in coming around the technology we built for the platform. Problems that farmers also face, that we have to deal with those challenges. Some of it includes off-takers that will buy us, mop up the harvest around the farm produce that we've come up with. Also, introducing the farmers to smart farming techniques has been something that it's an educational ongoing process. So yeah, we keep having to tell them how to do it better. Getting the right people on the team in Farm Crowley, who don't just have degrees in agriculture, but have a passion for impacting the lives of farmers. And like any other startup we face in the early phase, raising funds to keep things going, to have resources to continue meeting our mandates. All of these have been problems that we faced, but every day there are problems we keep learning from and improving our systems on and getting better at it. Right now we're in the southwest region. Eventually we're looking at extending to the Hadejia region, and we have also some farms also in Jos. And so the way we approach creating awareness among the farmers is that we get into the farms, we meet the community leaders, we meet the ambassadors, we meet those that represent the farmers, cooperatives in some instances, and then we ask for a select few farmers that can work with us initially, who will become our ambassadors to other farmers in that initiative. Because when we're introducing smart farming techniques to these farmers, not every farmer will want to jump at it initially. But when they see one farmer doing fine, they are encouraged by it and they want to come on board.
Recognized as a young global leader by the World Economic Forum and the recipient of National Honor Member of the Federal Republic of Nigeria from the Nigerian government, Ndidi Onwuneli is a published author and a force whose impact is one to be reckoned with. She is the founder of Leap Africa, a respected leadership development organization that works across Nigeria impacting youth, entrepreneurs, and professionals in their thousands. She is also the co-founder of AACE Food Processing and Distribution and a partner at Sahel Capital, an advisory and private equity firm focused on the agribusiness sector in West Africa. Ndidi holds an MBA from Harvard Business School and has been listed as one of the 20 youngest Power African women by Forbes. She actively serves on numerous boards internationally and locally, including Nestle Nigeria PLC, Nigerian Breweries PLC, and Royal DSM Sustainability Board. Today, Ndidi will share some keys to identifying and harnessing emerging opportunities in the Nigerian business terrain. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome to Vantage Forum 2017, Ndidi Onwuneli.
Okay, great. Now we can hear. All right, it's a pleasure to be here, and I have many friends in the audience who have more experience than I do, so I'll just be sharing some insights from you. It's also always difficult to follow a professor who has a PhD in economics. So I don't have a PhD. So I'm just going to be sharing my modest experiences working in this environment and the challenges and opportunities that exist. So we're going to start off. Okay, thank you. We're going to start off looking at how you actually go about finding and testing an opportunity. And I assume some people in the audience are entrepreneurs, others are aspiring entrepreneurs. We're going to talk about some case examples from my personal story and the stories of others, and then basically some practical next steps. So when you see this picture, what do you see? Huh? People. Imagine that in 1980, the population of Africa was 477 million. 2016, 1.2 billion. And by 2050, will be 2.4 billion. Now, what is the population of Nigeria going to be in 2050? Does anyone know? 450 million. What about Lagos? 50 million. Now, how many people do we have in Lagos at the moment? We assume about 20 million. So if we have 50 million, it raises the issue of who's going to feed them, where are they going to sleep, what about transportation, sanitation, water, housing? And the fact is, we see these people and we're like scared. Other people see them and what do they say? Opportunity. They see money. That's why every single consumer goods company is looking at Africa, because they see people. People who need food, who need clothing, who need shoes, who need services. And yet, we Nigerians are neglecting the opportunities that they see. So my first challenge to you this morning, building on what Professor Salami has said, is that we have to do a better job of scanning our environment. You have to really spend more time seeing things through new lens. At Leap Africa, we challenge our participants to see things through new lens. What do you see? What do you feel? What do you hear? What makes you angry? What do you complain about all the time? You know, the funny thing is that what you see, other people don't see. Some people have walked into this room today and they've seen the watches that everybody's wearing, and they know the brands. I don't see watches. I see other things that you might not see. So ask your neighbor, what do you see? What do you see? The challenge to you this morning is that when you step out of here, you have to start seeing things through new lens. From a Christian perspective, we ask God to give us discernment, right? Give us that spiritual eye that we can see something and an opportunity where others don't. What gives you joy? What makes you happy? What are you willing to do for free? What do others tell you that comes naturally to you? Oftentimes, we neglect the gifts, the God-given gifts, that purpose that we were born to achieve. I would say that, unlike others, I really believe that this is a positive time to start a business. In fact, it's a great time to start a business in Nigeria. I came back to Nigeria in 2000. That's a long time ago. And then there were no entrepreneurship support organizations. Faith Foundation was the first. There were no business plan competitions. We started the first, Faith Foundation. But today, at every single day, there's a business plan competition, an investors forum, an incubator. The landscape has changed. And global investors are interested in Africa in a way that they never were. Personally, I've been invited to so many events with investors coming to Nigeria. And I'm like, why are you coming to Nigeria? They say, because this is where there is growth. And young people bustling with ideas. And yet, many of us are trying to cross the Sahara, risk our lives, to get on a boat, to get to Europe, when people are coming to look for us. I would argue that there are many untapped sectors. And I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about agriculture. But beyond agriculture, education is untapped. It is untapped. I can assure you that every time I sit in a room with other mothers, we're talking about education. That means we're complaining about some of the challenges that we're facing. and I'm sure many of you share my burden when it comes to education. Not just traditional education in the four walls of a classroom, but vocational education. And people are coming into our environment and they're doing amazing things. There are tremendous opportunities in health, in technology, in consumer goods, in interiors, in every single sector. And I'll give a few examples. So the first challenge is, as we think about opportunities, we have to do our research, we have to be strategic, we have to think out of the box. And I'm going to come back to illustrate all of these things. We have to map out our supply chain and our distribution channels, develop a compelling value proposition, form strategic partnerships, etc. I'll illustrate this from my own personal example. So let me start off with Ace Foods. It was interesting the other day, a TV crew came to do a documentary on Ace Foods. And someone said to me, how did you come up with this idea? And I said, you know what? This is why I asked you, what do you see? When other people see Gucci bags, I saw hunger. Right? I saw hungry children. I couldn't shake it off. I'd look out of my window, I'll see hungry children. When I'd go shopping abroad, I wouldn't go to the high streets. I'd go to the supermarkets because I wanted to see what they were producing. And I love going to the market. I don't know how many of you like going to the market. I like going to the market. Now, that was something about me. But God also positioned me in a place where I got an opportunity to see the depth of the struggles. Someone asked me to come in and do a strategic plan for them. They wanted to enter Nigeria, a large multinational. And doing that strategic plan, I found out that 41% of our children were stunted. When I compared it to rates in Rwanda, in Somalia, in Sudan, we had higher rates of malnutrition than some of those countries. And I said, Nigeria has a higher rate than Sudan? How is it possible? When 60% of our farmers, 60% of our population is engaged in agriculture, when we have the best arable land, wonderful fruits and vegetables, how can we have such high rates of malnutrition? And when people have malnutrition, what parts of the body does it affect? The brain. So when they tell you a child doesn't want to go to school, a child is dull, parts of the country, they are dull, they don't want to go to school. How many of you have said such nonsense? A big part of it is what? Malnutrition. That really made me angry and upset. I also realized when I went into our supermarkets that we're importing 90% of the processed food we consumed. And that many of the food I grew up eating, we weren't eating anymore. How many of you, what did you have for breakfast today? Those who had breakfast. Bread and tea. Is the tea grown here? The flour from Nigeria? No. The butter? Nothing. Even Blue Band is made in Ghana. That makes me angry. I don't know if it makes you angry. I'll say it enough until Unilever starts producing Blue Band here. I'm not on their board. So the truth is, instead of getting angry, we decided to channel that anger into positive change. And we set up a company called Ace Foods. And our mission is to provide nutritious and tasty food made from the best of West Africa's fruits, vegetables, and herbs. And our vision is twofold. It addresses the nutrition issues. We want to address the nutritional status of our people and improve the livelihoods of our farmers. And when you see our products cut across a wide range. And I'll just dwell a bit on this because people say when you tell your story, it sounds too good to be true. So we wrote a business plan competition in 2009. We won, we got funding. Startup capital is great, right? And our first products were going to be jams. I'm sure some of you have heard this story before. So what are jams? Do you guys know jam? You put it on bread. And we and pectin is the thing that makes the jam sticky. So if you actually use agbalumo to make jam, you save money, and it's really good, trust me. So we won this business plan competition because we're going to make pepper sauces, because I'd go into supermarkets and restaurants in Nigeria and they give you Tabasco sauce. Have you ever had that? Doesn't that make you upset? What is Tabasco sauce when we have the best chili pepper in the world? So we started with jams. And the first thing we realized was that Nigerians wanted a specific type of jam. What jam was that? It had to be red. Strawberry jam. Why do you guys want strawberry jam? Huh? Why do you like it? Because the British have colonized your mind. So anyway, the first thing so we had to say, what produce can we use to make it? Because we want to use fruits. Then we ended up making a mixed fruit jam with watermelon, which didn't have a lot of taste. Was that sugar was 50% of the contents of jam. And a certain individual has a monopoly, a certain company. So they doubled the price of sugar from 6,000 naira a bag to 12,000 naira a bag in the space of 3 months. And then the third realization was that there was a ban on the importation of jars, jam jars. So we used to go to dump sites and collect jars, sterilize them, and make them look like new. And then we ran out of jam jars, because we had taken all the ones they had in all the dump sites in Lagos. But the biggest issue was that the demand, the latent demand to really drive local jam wasn't there. And that our competition, remember he said, who are your competitors? Our competitors were making flavored water, putting in coloring and calling it jam. And all of you were buying it for your donuts and your cakes. And we said that goes against our vision, which is to use local food sourced from farmers. But our year 3 strategy was spices. So we went, you always have year 1, you launch this, year 2, you launch that. You know that's for those of you who have written business plans. So we went to consumer goods companies and said, what spices are you importing? They told us, and we said we can source locally. So we put our farmers into clusters, and we started selling in 25 kg sacks to food companies like Flour Mills of Nigeria, Promassador, etc. And Dangote noodles. They were our first customers. And today, we have 12 products in all the major supermarkets. We're in about 8 cities. And we have a complimentary food breakfast cereal that fights moderate malnutrition, which we've been distributing to the IDP camps in partnership with the government and nonprofits. So the story is that you might start off with one idea. You're going to be shaken, frustrated, but you cannot give up because you have a clear vision and a clear mission and a clear purpose. Now, beyond our story, when you think about the ag sector, it's a growth sector, and Professor Salami already told us it's a growth sector. Agriculture is not farming. Tell your neighbor, agriculture is not farming. Many of you are going to say, I'm not a farmer. I don't want to go to the farm. Is that the only sector? They're all aspects of the value chain. I consider myself a participant in the value chain, but I'm not a farmer. I'm a processor. I'm sourcing locally, processing for the local market. Across the board, there are opportunities. There are opportunities in every single space, from the farm to the fork, from seeds to the crop protection products, to the logistics, to the ICT, to the financing, across the board. So there's nothing you do today that cannot be related to agriculture. You can't tell me you make furniture and interiors and you're not doing agriculture, because you need to source your wood. You need to source your polish. Even those who do clothing have to be linked to agriculture, because we really need to think about sustainable cotton for our local manufacturing. I'm currently launching a new initiative in partnership with a few stakeholders in my other hat, Sahel Capital, where we're looking at the dairy sector. 99% of the processed milk we drink in Nigeria is imported. So we're putting Fulani herdsmen into clusters. We're helping them settle. And every day, the processors, large processors, will buy their milk for local consumption. Now, won't that address multiple issues? It would address issues of poverty, illiteracy. It will address issues of the Fulani herdsmen getting into communities they shouldn't be in. And it will ensure that we can have fresh milk, fresh yogurt, fresh cheese at cheaper prices for our people. Think about that opportunity and the number of ideas like that that many of us have that we haven't tapped into. And when you look at across the board, the drivers of the opportunities in the food industry are really around convenience, low-cost food, food that's available, food that's accessible. Now, I want to sound a note of caution, because when I often speak, people come up to me and say, I want to go into spice processing. Since you're doing it and you're making money, stay in your lane. Tell your neighbor, stay in your lane. There are many ideas under the sun. Don't copy anybody else's idea. Remember I told you you need to figure out what your purpose is and what you're uniquely designed to do. So don't copy anybody else. Figure out what that niche is and do it well. Not that we welcome competition, no. But I'm just saying that the sky is wide enough for all of us, and the opportunities across the board. I'd also mention that with Sahel Capital, we actually take private equity investments in agribusinesses. We manage the fund for financing agriculture in Nigeria. And so if you are looking for financing and you're really serious about your existing business, you should talk to us. Now, beyond the for-profit space, there are opportunities in the social sector. Now, how many of you are passionate about the social sector? Raise your hand. Now, the social sector is essentially the sector where you come in because you want to make a difference in the lives of people. You're not really there just for money. You can cover your salary, but you're there to change the world. And about 14 years ago, I felt led to start an organization called Leap Africa. And Leap Africa is really focused on inspiring, empowering, and equipping a new generation of African leaders. And I always talk about the social sector because enough of us are not thinking about the changes we need to make in our society from the non-profit sector. And in every society, you have the public sector, the private sector, and what we call the third sector, which is the non-profit sector. Leap has worked in 26 states across Nigeria, and we have 3 main programs, eLeap, BizLeap, and Youth Leap. And we've written 11 books, and thankfully some of our books are here, which share our passion around teaching ethics, leadership, civics, and engagement. Now, beyond our programs, our direct programs, we also recognize young social innovators every year. Young people who have seen problems in their society and are doing something about it. And every year we recognize 20, and I just want to share some of their stories because they inspire me. Similar to recyclers and the videos that you've seen earlier, but these individuals have come in from a different perspective. They're trying to change the world. They've started an initiative, but it is a social enterprise. So Safer Mom is an initiative that was started by a young man, and basically he realized that so many of our mothers were dying during childbirth. And instead of saying, well, I'm not going to do anything about it, he started an initiative that basically has registered 9,000 mothers. They've gotten their cell phone numbers, and every day these mothers get a text message during their 9-month period of pregnancy saying, you know, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do, avoid this medicine. So providing very useful information. 1 out of every 10 women dies in Nigeria during childbirth. It's one of the highest rates in the world. And if I went around this room and asked how many of you know someone who has died during childbirth, many of us will raise their hand. And this guy says, I'm going to do something about it. He has gone to 23 primary health centers. He's gotten investors from a broad range of people, and he was recently actually recognized by the Queen of England herself, a young Nigerian. Another one of our participants, our social innovators, also started an initiative where he's producing low-cost feed for 700 farmers, working with farmers where his father was a farmer himself, and his initiative is called On Fire. And he's reduced the farmer cost by providing feed to them by 50%. And then some of you know Mama Money. She also was recognized by WIMBIZ and Ebony Life earlier this year. She used to be a house help. And why her story is so inspiring is that instead of her saying, well, my mom is a widow, I'm a house help, I'm not going to do anything, she lifted herself up, got herself educated, and now she raises financing and gives vocational training and money to women to start businesses. And she's trained over 4,000 women, and she's inspired many, many more. And her story is amazing. I don't know how many of you have met her. But I want to showcase that a lot of us in this room could point to the reasons why we're not excelling, why we're not starting initiatives. And for every excuse, there's actually a reason why you should. Step out of your comfort zone, challenge yourself, and think about what you can do to change the lives of others. Now, some practical tips for all of you. And this is building on what Doyin Salami has talked about. I recently wrote a book called Reaching Millions with Impact. And in that book, I interviewed 80 innovators across Africa to find out what it takes to build an initiative that will scale. Because we want to reach millions. Even if you have a for-profit business, you want to reach millions. You want to know your customer, your competitor, do all of that, but you want to reach millions. So I'm going to just share some fundamental models for you. There are 6 compelling aspects of their business models that allow them to succeed and scale. The first is that your initiative has to be demand-driven. Can we say that? Demand-driven. What does it mean to be demand-driven? Being demand-driven means you might think that I have a need. I gave you the example of Ace Foods. I like pineapple jam. But do other people like pineapple jam? Huh? No. So if I'm going to force pineapple jam on the people, who is going to buy my product? Maybe 1% of the population, the expatriates, 0.05. The expatriates, people who travel all over, who think pineapple jam is exotic, right? And are willing to pay a premium for pineapple jam. Many times we come up with a business idea that we find so compelling ourselves, but others are not willing to pay money for it. Or if they are, it's not sustainable, meaning they'll pay for a little bit, maybe they'll feel sorry for you the first time, the second time, by the third time they say, please, 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 carry and go. Your initiative has to be demand-driven, and you have to ensure that individuals are willing to pay for it over a long period. It doesn't matter if it's a non-profit or for-profit, it has to be demand-driven. The second is that you have to be able to measure your impact. Now, we measure our impact through looking at numbers like profitability, our revenue growth, but beyond that, what is the impact you're having on the life of that customer? On their convenience, on their effectiveness, to ensure that they're going to stick with you. You have to measure, and you have to tell that story, because you need to capture it so that the next person will be compelled to join. You also need to have a model that is simple. I always tell people, if you can't explain your business idea to me in 10 seconds, then don't waste my time. In fact, I was in Calabar on Friday, and I had people stand up and do the elevator test. And I said, imagine you're on an elevator with Bill Gates. 1 floor to the 10th floor. Tell me what you're doing. Some people are, What is your value proposition? Can you articulate it in 1 sentence? If you can't, it's not simple enough for somebody who works for you to articulate it. And by the time you start growing, the idea will be lost. The message will be lost. Do you understand? So that value proposition has to be simple. It has to be simple enough to implement in other places. We often struggle when we say, there was a very nice donut shop on my streets. But when they expanded to Obebi, the donuts didn't taste the same. Why? Because the business model was too complex to replicate. Then you have to engage your community. And everybody has to define who their community is. Your community is critical to the success of your enterprise. I am in manufacturing, so you can imagine being in Sango Ota. When we opened our factory, we had to have the traditional rulers of Ota there. I never imagined that we'll have to go and invite them. Why would I have to have the traditional ruler of Ota? In some of your businesses, you don't know who the traditional ruler of your community is. But when you're in manufacturing, the first lesson you learn is that if you don't know who the traditional ruler is, you will have problems. Who is going to come and disturb you? Who? Omonile, this and that. You want to raise your wall, they'll come. Put a roof, they'll come, right? So we've had to stretch ourselves to get out of our comfort zone, to get to know our community. I went to our Christmas party. The whole community was at our Christmas party. You know, the community leaders, their families, and their children. It's a very unusual experience because being in Lekki Phase 1 with our other businesses, I mean, who is the community leader there? I don't know. The fourth thing is that you have to leverage technology. And thank God we have someone from the technology space here, but many of us don't understand how technology can save money, reduce cost, improve our efficiency, improve how we track our staff, change the way we work. And in this day and age, you have to leverage technology in every aspect of your business. You have to be low cost. This goes without saying. You have to be low cost. I often like to tell people that the way that we do things, offering state-of-the-art, is not scalable and will not allow you to reach millions of people. I don't know if I have it in this slide, but in my book, I talk about Bridge International Academies. How many of you have heard of Bridge International Academies? Their vision is to educate 10 million children by 2025. Now, their break-even point is 500,000 children. How many of our schools have 500,000 children? Do you know any school in Nigeria that has 500,000 children? They started in Kenya, and now they're in Nigeria. And I think they have about 20 schools already. And they charge between 16,000 naira and 20,000 naira a term. How are they able to do that? Huh? Technology. Low costs. They don't offer such a beautiful air-conditioned room like this, right? They know who their target audience is, and they're offering high-quality education to their target audience at the lowest cost possible. Designed with the lowest cost model from the onset. The other key takeaway that I realized from this research is that there's more money chasing opportunities in Africa than we know. In fact, many people cannot find the opportunities. And many of you complain about money. I'm sure if I ask many of you, why is your business not growing? You say what? After today, don't say it again. And I'm serious. What shocked me is that many of us are not investment ready. If I actually told you today I have $1 million, I want to put it in your business, can you convince me that you'll actually use it effectively? Many of you will not be able to convince me. How have you managed your books? How transparent is your organization? What is your governance structure? Do you have a board? And don't tell me you're too small to have a board. For every organization I've started, the first thing I do is set up a board. From day one. Because nobody wants to invest in a one-man business or a one-woman business. They want to know that if something happens in Didi, that company will survive. So even if all I have is an idea, I start with the board. How do you communicate what you're doing? How effective are you at communicating your message? Do you have annual audits? It doesn't matter if you only made 6 million last year. Have an audit. It will show the trail, and it will inform your work. There's lots and lots and lots of money available. And like Dr. Salami said, right now, Nigerians are investing in Nigeria. There are angel networks even in Lagos, and yet they can't find the right business opportunities. So we have to get investment ready. So as I round up, I have only 2 minutes left. I want to challenge you to be aggressive about achieving excellence. My biggest issue with Nigeria is that we're very comfortable with mediocrity. We congratulate ourselves for the most basic things. And many of us think we're local champions. Just go abroad. It's a very humbling experience. Right? Because you realize that you haven't even scratched the surface. And you don't have to go very far. Go to Rwanda. Just go to Rwanda, a country go to Côte d'Ivoire. When I went to Côte d'Ivoire, I just wanted to cry. I went last year for the first time. I asked the taxi driver, how many days a year do you have electricity? He was confused. He said they've only taken the light 3 days this entire year. And they told us beforehand. I said, but you just came out of a war. And they drink water out of their tap. I mean, this is Côte d'Ivoire. We're not talking about Paris or London. We're talking about Africa, our neighbors. And there's nothing different about us. Now, I'm done complaining about the government and expecting the government to do anything. I want us to do it. We can start in our communities. Now, that means we have to change our mindsets. The commitment to excellence is critical. So how do you run your business? Are you disciplined? Do you demonstrate integrity? Now, integrity, I'm happy that we're in a church, and I know some people here are not Christians, but as a Christian, do you demonstrate integrity? Can I trust that your product is what it says it is? I can tell you that in the food industry, we are tempted every day to lie. Every day. When we started Ace Foods 2 years in, our customers showed us a product and said, you guys, can you match this price? And we said, no, we can't match the price. It's half our price. We buy chili pepper for 600 naira per kg. We can't sell you something for 300 naira per kg. We said, give us the sample from your current customer. So they gave us the sample, and we found out that it was corn flour, dyed red, with an extract of chili, which makes it smell like chili pepper. Now, the dye is carcinogenic. So it causes cancer. Do you know how many people sell that chili pepper in Nigeria? Lots of companies. So, of course, it's very tempting for Ace Foods to match it. We'll triple our profits. Instead of making 20% margin for B2B, we'll make 600% margin. If we're you, what would you do? Would you match? Your customer is telling you to match. Would you do it? People are quiet now. No, human beings anywhere, right, would be tempted. When we teach ethics at LEAP, I always use the example where they asked honest citizens in the US, what would you do for $100 million? 97% said they would lie, 25% would abandon their family, 7% would kill a stranger. in the United States. So if you ask that question in Nigeria, what would you honestly do for 100 million? How much does it cost to kill a stranger here? Huh? It depends on how hungry you are, right? The point is, you have to demonstrate ethics. And as a Christian, you have to stand. Your business has to be known to be an ethical business. I could go on and on. This is one of my pet peeves. Because we are our number one problem. We ourselves. I'm not pointing to anybody in Abuja. I call them rulers. We ourselves have to lead by example. Finally, be ready to rise above risks. It's a tough time. But as I said, this is actually the best time to start a business. Because when things are tough, people look inwards. And they're going to patronize you in a way that they've never done before because they don't have many options. But it means you have to be creative. It means you have to look for local alternatives to what you've been importing. It means you have to think out of the box. It means you have to stretch yourself. The former MD of Nestle, who board I serve, and said, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And I really believe it. A crisis is a great time to cut costs because everybody will understand why you're cutting costs. And it's a great time to transform your business and to think out of the box. And I'll end with my final quote, which is one of my favorite quotes at the moment, by Nelson Mandela, which says, vision without action is just a dream. Action without vision just passes the time, and vision with action can change the world. Now, I'm tired of talk. Talk is cheap, and we love to talk. Now, with social media, Nigerians are talking on Twitter, they're talking on Facebook, they're talking. But what does it say about talk? Vision without action. It's just what? A dream. It's time for us to start changing the world. It's time for us to start combining action. And action that's honest, action that demonstrates integrity, action that is committed to excellence, action that sees opportunities where others see hopelessness. And my challenge to you today is that we collectively need to change the world. So I'm depending on all of you to rise, see opportunities, and achieve excellence. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Can you keep putting your hands together? Thank you very much, Mrs. Simwonelli. That was an excellent presentation. Okay, so for people who have written their questions, please just pass them around to the ushers. They will go around to collect them so we can process them at the back. We're getting very close to the question and answer session. Next, we're going to take a video presentation about another one of our showcase companies, and our next speaker will be introduced, and then he will come on to speak.
The city of Lagos has been dubbed one of the fastest growing commercial hubs of Africa. And like all cities, it has its challenges, one of which is waste management. Currently, Lagos produces 14,000 tons of waste every day, 30% of which is recyclable waste. One woman and her company of recyclers are trying to combat this by turning waste into value. Meet Billy Keys, co-founder and CEO, Recyclers.
So about 4 years ago, I was a student at the MIT Sloan School of Management, and I took a class called Development Ventures. And the class focused on the problems that were faced by people that live at the base of the pyramid, people that earn less than $2 a day. In Nigeria, about 70% of Nigerians live in poverty. One of their biggest issues is waste management. So the idea for Recyclers came up because we wanted to help people to get value from their waste. And so what we do at Recyclers is we have these low-cost cargo bicycles called WeCycles that go around to people's houses, collect their recyclable waste from them, and then in exchange, the households get points, which they can then redeem for household items, electronics, and even money. The concept of giving people incentives for recycling is a very new one in Nigeria. And we had to build a business model around educating people to sort their waste, collecting the waste from them, and then turning that waste into value. And it was a very challenging process. We started off with figuring out, okay, what is the best means of collecting the waste? What are the best kinds of points? how best do you reach out to your customers, getting the right staff. So many issues that we faced, as a company, but those issues have actually helped us to become stronger.
So I am the hub manager for this recycler hub. So basically what we do here is we collect recyclable materials from household to household. It is brought into the hub. Then the materials are sorted in colors and materials. The materials are either built or crushed, then sold to those that actually need them as raw materials for their own products. Majority of the materials we collect are PET bottles, aluminum cans, pure water sachets, cartons, and papers. So on average in a day, we recycle close to 3,000 kilograms of recyclable waste. And we have like 8 collectors that go from household to household to collect recyclable waste from over 5,000 households in our area here. But overall, as recyclers, we have 11,000 subscribers at the moment.
So the impact of what we are doing is huge. I remember there was a study that was just released recently on, on the impact that unmanaged waste has on the environment. So they said that by 2050, there will be more plastic than fish in the ocean. It takes about 1,000 years for plastic to degrade. So if you take plastic and you put it in the landfill or in the dump site, it will be there for 1,000 years and nothing is going to happen. For a long time, a lot of our funding has been from, winning awards, grants and things like that. As we began to become more mature, we've partnered with organizations, companies that have something to gain by us being in existence. For instance, companies that manufacture most of the products here, they would like for us to collect the waste on their behalf, and we go into partnerships with them. So at WeCyclers, we utilize a combination of high-tech and low-tech. So the low-tech is our bicycles. We built these cargo bicycles here in Nigeria. We build them in a way that they are cheap to build. We needed to have a solution that would work in Nigeria, that is customized to Nigeria. So the bicycles are cheap, they are narrow, so they can go through the streets. They don't really need much power, they don't need much fuel. They can just need human power. So that's our low tech. So the high tech part of WeCyclers is our proprietary SMS platform. And that's what we use to manage our subscribers. We currently have about 15,000 people registered to the platform. We record their personal data, their demographic information, so we know where they live, what their gender is, their age. And we also record details of each pickup that we do with the subscriber. There is always going to be waste, no matter what. So it is the most, I want to say, the most secure business. I think we as Nigerians need to wake up. We are very much used to living a life of glamour. We want a nice job, we want to have a nice AC, but really, I think we need to see the beauty in this kind of thing. When I look at this, I see money. That's the way I've programmed myself. When I look at this, I see money.
For Billy Keys and her team at WeCyclers, it is a story of turning waste into value.
the West African partner to Systems Union UK, offering the Sun Systems suite of solutions. In the last decade, Systems Specs has become a leader in the Nigerian e-payment space with its innovative solution called Remita, which enables efficient and easy payments and collections of funds for individuals and corporate organizations on a single interbank platform. He has served various boards, including those of the Ministerial Advisory Council on Information and Communication Technology, the Institute of Software Practitioners of Nigeria, the Computer Professionals Registration Council of Nigeria, and the Governing Council of the National ICT Incubation Program. John Obaro was recently recognized with the honor of Leadership in Technology at the 2016 African Achievement Awards in Scotland, and also got recognized as the ICT Software Personality of the Year 2016 at the Beacon of ICT Award. He is passionate about the promotion of Nigeria's indigenous software industry as a capable and comparable rival to anywhere in the world. John Obaro is known in many circles as the consummate innovator. He is a trailblazer on many fronts, and indeed, his footprint is evident across many sectors of the Nigerian economy. Today, he shares his wealth of experience on how to build an innovative business in this economy climb. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome to Vantage Forum 2017, John Obaro.
My teacher at the Lagos Business School 18 years ago, Dr. Doyin Salami, and Didi. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. Let me also appreciate Mr. Iola and the planning committee for extending this invitation to me. When I got the invitation, a number of things crossed my mind. Why was I invited? I'm not as tall as many of the people I've seen in elevation. What am I doing here? And I just started wondering, how do I fit into this? But just then, a few things started crossing my mind. I thought to myself, perhaps because many businesses, about 80% of SMEs in Nigeria fail within 5 years. And that come February this year, System Specs, by God's grace, will be 25 years. And so somebody probably believes I have a magic wand. Or perhaps I was invited because some still believe that Remita truly makes 25 billion naira per day, as was publicly alleged some time ago. Something interesting about 25. Or perhaps I was invited because we're in an innovative field, and God has used us as System Specs as pioneers for a number of technology initiatives in Nigeria. I said, or perhaps it's because somebody remembered our award-winning monkey concept advert of several years ago when we were pushing our payroll package, and we said a company that pays peanuts will end up with monkeys. Or perhaps somebody remembered the employee self-service campaign, which we did some time ago, when we launched our employee self-service payroll and HR application way ahead of international brands. Or perhaps it's the wide adoption of Remita, a flagship payment solution that currently pays over 2 million employees on a monthly basis. Or perhaps because former President Obasanjo, in his book, My Presidential Legacy, proudly commended the deployment of Human Manager, our leading payroll solution, in the IP's pilot supervised by the World Bank, which saved Nigeria 416 million on a monthly basis before we were kicked out immediately after his exit from office. Or perhaps it's because of our involvement in the TSA project, which many more people are familiar with. The project that was to be delayed for 2 years before a solution was accidentally found in Remita. I'm not sure. But permit me today to look at higher goals, higher examples of innovations and sustainability in business. My presentation will be in 3 parts. The first is a short video in which we'll see the direction on innovation and something to guide your thoughts. In the second part, we would examine some foundational principles of innovation and sustainability. And then in the third, we'll look at an example of a sustainable business. In this first video you're about to watch, please take a cue from the kind of businesses or jobs you should be focusing on. Can we have this video now, please? Can we have the video? Well, it's technology, so please permit us to have technology problems.
It turns out the jobs of the future will be those jobs that cannot be done by artificial intelligence and robots. And there are huge gaps in what a robot can do. Robots have very bad eyesight. They see lines, circles, squares, but they don't understand that these lines, circles, squares make up a face, or a chair, or a cup. Pattern recognition is one of the big problems. Second, common sense. They don't understand the simplest things about human behavior, about the world. They don't know that water is wet. They don't know that strings can pull, but strings cannot push. So the 2 jobs that will thrive in the future and the 2 sets of jobs that will be destroyed are as follows. Among blue-collar jobs, repetitive jobs are going to be wiped out, obliterated. This means jobs in the automobile industry, textile industry that are purely repetitive are in danger. Non-repetitive jobs in blue-collar work will thrive. Garbage men, sanitation people, gardeners, police, construction workers, every job is different. They will survive. In white-collar work, it defies common sense. The people who will be thrown out of work are middlemen, low-level accountants, bookkeepers, agents, tellers, middlemen. The friction of capitalism are going to be obliterated. So who will benefit among white-collar workers? Workers who engage in intellectual capitalism. What is intellectual capitalism? It involves common sense. In other words, creativity, imagination, leadership, analysis, telling a joke, writing a script, writing a book, doing science. Realize that England, said Tony Blair, derives more revenue from rock music than it does the coal industry. Because we're making the transition from commodity-based capital like coal to intellectual capital like rock and roll.
In a very short video thereafter, please pay attention to why I enjoy what I'm doing now in the payment space. And that should also guide your direction of thought. The second video.
Narifar is the shop that never closes and has no staff. People living in this town in eastern Sweden can now shop any time of day at the country's first unmanned grocery store. From getting in to scanning their items, it's all done with an iPhone app. The app links to a user's bank account, so at the end of the month, customers receive an invoice for the goods they bought. Narifar owner, Robert Eliasson.
I was home alone with my kid. I was supposed to give him food, baby food, and I lost the canister of baby food and dropped it into the floor. It was the last one, and I panicked and we needed to leave to get a new one. And here in the village we didn't have any open stores. We had to go to the big city, and then I decided that we need a store here in the village that is always open. And of course, having personnel 24/7 is expensive, so I use technology to solve that problem.
The door stays open for 8 seconds to ensure security, and there are cameras installed inside the store. A credit check is done on new members, but for the most part, the concept is based on trust. Items like dairy products, frozen and dried foods are in stock, but ultimately, demand will be determined by what the store sells. And while it's only been open a short while, customers are catching on.
The size of this shop compares to other shops within the same size. Small shops tend to have higher prices, and this one doesn't. You have the normal price here of a normal superstore.
The best thing about shopping at Narifar is probably the convenience and the location. Being, it's a small place and it's pretty much in the middle of two bigger stores. It's very convenient. It's open 24/7, so you're able to get necessary products that you probably forgot in the store or that you feel like having it late at night or early in the morning for the stores that the other grocery stores have opened.
Eliasson is already thinking about expanding his business, although the store's staff Christmas party promises to be a rather solitary affair.
The summary of it is that we're looking towards a business in which, like in Sweden, you no longer carry cash. A lot of things are done on mobile apps. Innovative and sustainable business, a guide manual. A sustainable business is an enterprise that has minimal Sorry. I hope I have the correct slide. A sustainable business is an enterprise that has minimal negative impact on the global or local environment, community, society, and economy. It strives to meet the triple bottom line: people, planet, and profit. Its people are competent and able to perform optimally for the advancement of humanity, while the business also enjoys large profitable margins. This kind of business positively affects the environment, business growth, and the society at large. Fortunately, all this have been handled in one book called the Bible. We are enjoined that this book of the law should never depart from our lips. We should meditate on it day and night and be careful to do everything, then we will prosper. It's amazing how all of humanity's needs have been catered for in just one book, which is readily accessible to all and sundry. All we have to do is pay attention and heed the guidelines as provided in the book. Many people think of the Bible as a book of spiritual advice only, but it is far more than that. This book, as we all need to know, includes matters of innovation and sustainability in today's business world. All we have to do is to realize the keys and how to actualize them. The book contains 66 books written by 40 authors over 1,500 years and 40 generations on 3 continents and originally in 3 languages. The Bible has many examples of good, mediocre, and poor management practices. It contains facts and wisdom about geology, weather, culture, language, and a myriad of other subjects. It also contains many true statements about economics and a wealth of good advice on how to run a business. The fact that the Bible includes both good and bad examples of management practices lends to its credibility as a guide in business affairs. From it, we can learn much about how to manage business and succeed. It addresses many of the toughest issues in the business world today, including how to set up optimal organizational environment, the basic needs of the average human being, insubordination, outright rebellion, conflict resolution, and mediation between opposing parties. There are examples of how to use vision, how to set up organizational structure, selecting and mentoring successors, and how to approach others for best results. Talk of diplomacy, talk of politics. Many who are not necessarily Christians have studied this book, rephrased parts of it, and packaged it as consultancy services, or even written books out of the wisdom nuggets contained therein. These are only few of the many cases lying within the book. I commend this book to you, even though some say the black man does not read, but please, let's prove them wrong. The necessary foundations for an innovative and sustainable business. Some of the nuggets found in this book form the foundation of innovative and sustainable business. When you see flourishing businesses, you see their glory. What you do not readily see is the biblical foundation on which they rest. Like trees planted by the riverside that do not know the season of drought, but have unseen and deeply entrenched roots in the ground. Let's caption this in the words of Oprah Winfrey, who said, "You see my glory, but you don't know my story." Tree roots serve two vital functions. They gather nutrients from the soil, and they support the weight of the top growth of the tree. Like an iceberg, a large tree requires a large substructure. In the tree's case, it consists of roots that grow in waves as the tree leaf canopy expands. Some roots extend almost as deep as the height of the tree. Secondary feeder roots extend far beyond the tree's drip line, the imaginary line around the tree where water drips off the perimeter of its canopy. Genetic mutations and environmental considerations aside, all trees with huge wide crowns require deeper, stronger roots than smaller trees. If you want to build a blossoming, innovative, and sustainable business, focus on the roots. These roots include vision, the right attitude, integrity, diligence, dedication, prayers, clear choice, sleepless nights, creativity, planning, fairness, commitment, sacrifice, failure, focus, delegation, failure, hard work, perseverance, and team management. All of which are dependent on the God factor. But permit me, for the sake of time, to focus briefly on only 5 of these root strands. Vision. The earth is intriguing as it is, and which we will continue to study in different academic pursuits, is a product of God's vision of creation, conceived from the very beginning. A vision is the ultimate guide, the inspiration, the main reason to see things through. Often, a clearly defined vision is greater than the visionary. Like Scripture says, where there is no vision, the people perish. On diligence, it says, diligence is the ability to conscientiously pay proper attention to a task. It is deeply rooted in the ability to drill in when others have been peripheral. Of a truth, rarely do persistent efforts with hard work towards the accomplishment of certain goals end in futility. This is the power of diligence. Seest thou a man diligent in his ways? He shall stand before kings and not mere men. The paper will still be sent to you, so maybe I'll just skip because I think I have just a few more minutes left. But let me talk about attitude. It says nothing changes until you change. Everything changes once you change. A negative thinker sees difficulty in every opportunity, while a positive thinker sees opportunity in every difficulty. Nothing can stop the person with the right mental attitude from achieving their goal. Nothing on earth can help the person with the wrong mental attitude. Thomas Jefferson. When my attitudes are right, there is no barrier too high, no dream too extreme, and no challenge too great for me. Charles Swindoll. I will now briefly look at an example of an innovative and sustainable business. Resting on the biblical foundations we just reviewed, let us recall the story of a 19-year-old lad named William, who decided to go into soap-making business on his own. However, his business failed within a year. William determined to try again. So he trudged away with all his worldly possessions in a bundle dangling from his hand, resolving as he journeyed to set up business as a soap maker in New York. Be sure you start right and you'll get along well, advised a friend, a canal boat captain, who was a Christian. Someone will be the leading soap maker in New York. It may be you. Be a good man. Give your heart to Christ. Give God all that belongs to him. Make an honest soap. Give a full pound. Just like indeed he was saying. William also read the Old Testament story of Jacob's vow. When Jacob left home, he said, if God will be with me and watch over me on this journey I'm taking, and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear, so that I return safely to my father's house, then the Lord will be my God, and all that you, God, give me, I will give you a tenth. Jacob's vow challenged William. He made a similar vow and determined to give God first place in his life. He also promised to give a tenth, a tithe of his profits to God. In 1804, at age 21, William found employment with Slidell and Company, where he learned more about the soap-making business. When 2 years later the company ceased production, William was ready to set up. William's company met with success from the start. Within 6 years, he added the manufacture of starch to his laundry soap business. Later, he also produced hand soap and a variety of toilet and shaving soaps. As his business grew, so did his family. He donated large sums to several educational institutions, including Madison College, New York. William never forgot his promise to God. From the first dollar he earned, he devoted 10% of his net earnings to benevolence. As he prospered, he instructed his accountants to increase the amount to 20% and later to 30%. It seemed the more he gave, the more he prospered. The soap king William died about 160 years ago on March 25, 1857, but his influence continues. His name lives on in products in supermarkets throughout the world, and his name still preaches a sermon to those who know his story. That is a sustainable business. This William is the late William Colgate, a man whom God significantly prospered in return for his faithfulness. He left behind a company that is successful to this day and a college that bears his name. Williams Colgate not only believed in tithing, but believed in giving in an increasing measure over his life. It was not enough to give a tenth. Colgate recognized that by tithing he gave back to God, who was the giver of all he possessed. He knew that God owns it all. Next time you brush your teeth, remember Colgate's testimony and that he died 160 years ago and his story is still being told. That is sustainability. My prayer for you and I is that we too shall leave our landmarks and shall finish strong like William Colgate. Let me quickly tell you a little about an app. Just imagine you had an app in your hands that makes it possible to send money from any of your bank accounts, including microfinance banks. And you can pay anyone, business partners, family and friends. You can effortlessly pay utility bills from the convenience of your mobile phone without visiting a bank. You can manage standing orders or recurring payments in a breeze, never to visit a bank again. Or you can request money. You don't need a POS. You can ask somebody to send money to you or ask somebody to make a payment to you. And you can do all of this, view your receipts on this same device, view all your balances across different banks, and see a global total on one screen. You can track your spending by expense type and date. You can know how much you spent on a weekly basis, monthly basis, compare with the previous week or month. Carry your receipts with you always and provide evidence of payment. In case road safety arrests you, you make your payment and show the receipt instantly. You can top up your airtime and data. And if you're a corporate user, you can authorize payments for your organization, SME, school or religious body on the go. You can do all of this. The wait is almost over. By God's grace, 25 years, System Specs will be 25 in February 2017. And that is what we'll be bringing to the market as part of our contribution in the innovation space. Now, in closing, let me encourage you with the words of Mahatma Gandhi, who says, if you want to be an innovator, you must recognize that first, they will ignore you. Then, they laugh at you. Then, they fight you. You can ask me. And then, you win. Once again, I want to say thank you to the organizers, and I want to encourage each and every one of us to keep aspiring. Like I said, you can fail. It's allowed. The real failure is not to stand. I wish you all the best as you seek for the different corner in which you can be an innovator in the Nigerian space. Thank you very much.
Keep clapping. Can you put your hands together one more time for Mr. Obaro? And I found that quote from Mahatma Gandhi very, very insightful. I'm gonna memorize it, okay? And the next time you see me somewhere or hear me speak, I'm gonna be saying it like I read it in the book myself. All right, so we're gonna go on to our next our next speaker, our next and last final speaker for this morning. So if you saw our advertisement, we had advertised that the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment will be with us today. Unfortunately, he's no longer able to make it. Things changed just a few hours ago. He's on a trip currently with the Vice President. But nonetheless, he sent an extremely able and capable representative, right, in the person of Mrs. Toyin Adeniyi. She's the Executive Director, Micro Enterprises of the Bank of Industry. Okay, so we're going to still play the video introduction for the minister, and then Mrs. Adeniyi will come up to speak. So just watch the video, put your hands together, and receive Mrs. Adeniyi. Right, thank you.
Hello, my name is Chioma and I'm a member of the Elevation Church. Thank you for joining us at our event today, particularly if you're a first-time or a returning guest. We're glad to have you here, and I would like to take a few minutes to tell you a bit about our church. The Elevation Church has been set up by God to be a witness of Christ to our communities while achieving greatness in all spheres of life. Simply put, we are on a mission to make greatness common under the leadership of Pastors Godman and Bolarinwa Akinlabi. Greatness at the Elevation Church first and foremost means service. So we are servant leaders committed to giving our best to God and humanity. We're involved in numerous community development initiatives, including rehabilitation programs, medical aid outreaches, and benevolence drives, where we set other individuals on their path to greatness. We believe that reaching out to meet people's needs is one of the most potent forms of spreading the good news of the gospel. As we know, people rarely care about what you know until they know how much you care. The Word of God takes first place at the Elevation Church, and in every service you can expect challenging messages from our pastors as they are practical and applicable to our daily lives. We know that it is the doer of the word that is blessed, and we believe that as you hear the word and do the word, your lives will be changed for good. One thing I personally love about the Elevation Church is there is a place for everyone. Single, married, middle-aged, or empty nesters, we've got you. There are several interest groups that you can identify with, from business to sports, art, creativity, media, social skills, music, and so on. For our young people, we have a young adult church called the Life Point Church that speaks the same message but in your language. One thing is certain: regardless of your age, your life status, or your life stage, you can find a home with us. We have different ministry expressions where you can find a home, and we invite you to visit any of our centers on the island and mainland, as well as our young adult expression, the Life Point Church. You will have a blessed time. If you've got questions for us, we would love to hear from you. Thanks for listening, and we hope to welcome you soon to any one of our centers. God bless you.
Dr. Okechukwu Enelama has over 27 years of private sector experience spanning finance, consulting, auditing, and private equity, a Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery degree from the University of Nigeria, and a Master's in Business Administration from the Harvard University Graduate School of Business. The Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment oversees policy making and implementation that relate to industrialization of the economy, development of small and medium-scale enterprises, promotion of exports and foreign direct investment, and the expansion of trade. The goal is to ensure that policies and actions lead to inclusive growth, wealth and job creation, poverty reduction, and to ensure enhanced service delivery in a manner that will stimulate the growth of the domestic economy for self-reliance and export. His vision is to work in partnership with all the relevant stakeholders, government, private sector, agencies, to boost Nigeria's investment attractiveness. Today, Dr. Enelama will share some of the federal government plans for economic growth, job creation, and wealth generation in the coming year. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome the Honorable Minister, Dr. Okechukwu Enelama.
Good morning. First of all, I'd just like to apologize for, I think things had to be moved around quite a bit. Probably the Honorable Minister was meant to sort of set things, set the stage in the morning. So part of what, from what his presentation actually does set the tone from a policy perspective, mostly from a policy perspective, but I think it still have a place and it still sort of plug into all the other presentations that we've already heard today. Unfortunately, I missed the beginning as well. I would have loved to be here to be able to pull it all together. But that said, I did get a bit of the last one, and I'll just take it from there. So, standing on all existing protocols, I'll just go straight into the presentation. I will be making the presentation that the Honorable Minister himself was meant to make. So it is going to address the perspective of innovation and opportunities from looking at it from someone that sits in government. But as you also know, the Honorable Minister is a pastor himself. And so all of that, I think, will come out in the presentation. So I'll just go straight into it. Thank you very much. So basically, the presentation is going to go through a recap on the economy, look at Nigeria's strategy for growth and diversification, the opportunities that come out or coming out from the situation that we find ourselves in, and focusing on some key sectors, and then I'll go into a conclusion. It will provide insights into key emerging sectors of opportunity, again, reflecting what this government is doing, and especially coming out of the ministry that he oversees. So looking at this slide, basically a recap on our economy. And this is like looking at it from a crisis perspective and saying the situation we're in today is a crisis that is too good an opportunity to waste. We all know, coming from 2014, that Nigeria pretty much went into a downturn in terms of its economy, and we're all familiar with this. And these different indicators go to show that the story of oil shocks, short supply of forex, hit very close to everyone, and we can see that from here with sort of GDP sort of going down from 2014. Obviously, the foreign exchange rate took a real hit from 2014. And I think the oil drop was just, the real catalyst that just really cracked the whole system and really, really tanked the economy and showed that the kind of weak fundamentals that had been there for a while. So, yes, this presents a crisis landscape, but we all know that, again, a crisis is too good an opportunity to waste, and out of the crisis comes opportunities. The government has had to learn, and to learn very quickly, and stay focused on economic diversification. The government is currently in full implementation mode, and some of these initiatives I'll talk about in the slides to come. While the effects of whatever steps that the government is taking will take time to materialize, we are actually at the start of a recovery, and which in 2017 there will be its full execution. Since this is a business conference, it helps to begin by asking the question, how easy is it to do business in Nigeria? Because when we talk of innovation, a lot of time that will lead to it's all from a business perspective. And so how easy is it to do business in business in Nigeria? One of the major programs of the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investments is the ease of doing business in Nigeria. And this is something that it's an index that is prepared yes, by the World Bank, I believe every year or every other year. And so they rank countries according to how easy it is to do business in those countries. And so MITI is very, very focused on this. So again, what are some of the parameters, the benchmarking marking parameters or metrics that are used? There are 4 listed here. Starting a business, how easy is it to start a business? Power, electricity, what's the state of power in the country? How does it support businesses in the country? Getting credit or access to finance, what are the challenges? How easy is it for a business to access credit? And enforcing contracts and property rights. These are very key metrics that businesses need to survive. Nigeria today is ranked 189 out of 200 countries in the Global Ease of Doing Business Index. This is not great. But then, other countries have also been in that sort of at the bottom of the ranking and have been able to jump up even 20, 30, 40 points in some instances. So with all of this in the backdrop, how do we as a government approach a difficult business environment? We need to deal with what we can control, and a lot of this can be controlled. So it needs action. And then we now deal with the external. So this government's focus was to first stop the bleeding by focusing on quick wins. For example, the CAC reforms that enables online business name registration, and more options are being created for MSMEs as we speak. With everything, with what has been done so far, in 2015, Nigeria actually moved up 1 point. Now, that doesn't sound so great, but it is a movement, and it is in the right direction. So, without patting ourselves on the back, this is not enough. But with the strong macroeconomic headwinds, especially with the foreign exchange, we are set to hopefully move this up several more notches. In 2017, we as a government are laser focused on drastic, fast-paced reforms conducted simultaneously to improve the business environment and attract foreign investment. I'll speak a little bit about this in the upcoming slides. Again, still drilling into the Nigerian economy, Nigerian economy and, the business environment, there are still things that make Nigeria a compelling case for business that still remain strong and haven't changed. These are fundamentals that has made Nigeria like make Nigeria still retain its status as an attractive destination or an attractive market features really for businesses to thrive. So again, what are those fundamentals? Some of them are listed here again. Size, population is a big one, with the 170 million, 180 million, depending on who is counting, and growing. Nigeria has the largest population in Africa and 7th largest in the world. This is really important. Product and demographic potential, natural resources. Nigeria, oil. We are the 10th largest proven reserve, and with gas, we're the 9th largest. Strengthen democratic institutions. Over the years, Nigeria has continued to maintain a democracy, and this continues to improve year on year. So again, we can see the robust fundamentals. This gives a positive outlook on economic fundamentals. We have a resilient private sector We have skilled, low-cost labor. The Nigerian population poses a large market with potential to be the hub and entry for the larger West African market. Our economy is relatively diversified across sectors and regions, and we have a fast-growing financial services sector and free flow of investment capital. Therefore, pulling all of this together, again, this is just to sort of pull all the previous slides, that there's a conviction on Nigeria as an attractive market for business and private capital. And so that's what this slide shows. Again, just, emphasizing the outlooks on the macro outlook, the fundamentals, the investment incentives, and also that it is a relatively stable environment. Okay, so what are the key issues and what is this government doing? What is the motivation behind some of the policies and the actions that they are taking? So in summary, our economy remains strong in its fundamentals. Some of them will not change. But there are issues that this government is working closely and currently trying to resolve. Again, these are not all the issues, but 3 are mentioned here. So when we look at the poor macroeconomic performance, and we look at some indices, unemployment and GDP growth, unemployment is major. The numbers keep on growing day by day. I know it's in double digits, but I'm not sure what the exact percentage is, but it is very concerning. And what is the government doing to tackle this? It's basically focusing on some KPIs with which they will measure their interventions. So what's going on? So for macroeconomic performance, we'll be looking at GDP, what's happening in the GDP per capita, if that's going up. Unemployment rate, there is a big drive to make that go down. Regional inequality across Nigeria, and wealth creation to improve across the country. On the issue of our dependence on oil, even though in the previous slide we had said we do have a relatively diversified economy, there's still a focus on oil. Oil is still the major, or was the major revenue earner, and that, of course, we know what problems has resulted from that. So to tackle our over-dependence on oil, what are we going to measure? What's going to help us know when we're on the right track? Trade deficit going down, the reliance on oil, weight of oil versus non-oil industries also going down. So there's a need to drive manufacturing and industry, and then to look at export revenues from other sources growing. On the issue of low FDI inflows, to tackle this, we're looking at increased investor trust. Again, what are we going to be looking at? More foreign direct investor inflows, foreign direct inflows into Nigeria. Then, of course, how do you increase investor trust? One key thing will be the ease of doing business. To climb to, this is the target, to climb 69 places from where we are to 169. Actually, I think it's to climb 20. I'm not sure where that 69 places came from. To climb 20 places from where we are now at 189 to 169 by 2018. It's a tall order, but we can do it. And then also to measure the number of foreign companies coming into Nigeria, to see that increasing. So these are some of the issues, and the government has put plans in place to try and tackle this and make sure that we can measure ourselves with some of these KPIs. Now, having laid the background for where we are and where we're coming from, what are some of those specific strategies for growth and diversification that we are looking at? Again, to answer that question and to see, you know, what do we do? Luckily, other countries have been through where we're at today and have been able to come out of it successfully. And so there's a lot to learn from. There are models that have worked. We need to understand what was the context, how similar to Nigeria are some of these examples, what did they do, and what can we learn from them. So there's no single model that sort of works as a silver bullet, and there's not one that we can take and just implement in Nigeria and say this will take us there. But from each and different ones, there's something to learn. Up here we have 3 examples, and I'm not going to go into them in a lot of detail. We have Germany, we have Italy, and we have Chile. Germany in the 1950s, set in the 1950s, and again, what was the situation? Post-World War II, industrial depression, and so things were tanking as well. High unemployment, and price control was weak, and currency policies were not in favor of growth. And they took very specific actions. Again, we can see it here, currency stability. They focused policy on currency stability, freeing up markets, and settling for strong legal parameters, respecting contract, respecting property right. Removed price control, again, that ties into the free market policies. And they introduced higher value currency to replace their old currency. So those were 3 clear steps that Germany took. And I think if you sort of fast forward that to Nigeria, you see that maybe some of those things are also being included in the Nigerian transformation program. What was the results? Strong export growth-based economy, surge in productivity, stable currency, and industrial growth. Again, moving closer, or taking it from the 1950s to between 50s and the 70s in Italy. What was the context here, and what can we learn from Italy? There was a boom in SME industries to accelerate economic development, and globalization put the SMEs in the country under pressure because of cheaper rivals. Again, we can sort of see the Nigerian situation in this, where we all know that SMEs form the bedrock of our economy. And then, so what can we take from it? The actions here again were to focus on MSMEs, focus on specific sectors, on the high growth sectors, and also make sure that the enabling environment was right. What were the results? SMEs were able to resist the pressure from the foreign rivals, and again, a boom in that sector. I won't spend too much time going on the Chile example, but again, that's closer in 2004, where talking more about, the minerals, looking more at what they did with their commodities in that sector. The government created special zones, the government lifted restrictive policy, and the results were exports increased, diversification, and foreign interest improved in the country. So there's something to take from these examples, and I believe that in the transformation that this government is focused on, and more even from the perspective of the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, some of these have all come to play. So the government is not trying to, technology challenge. Okay, so the government is not trying to reinvent the wheel, and basically just taking lessons from some of these examples and from others. And what the focus in terms of its transformation is to focus on 3 core pillars. of what we can call the diversification and growth plan for Nigeria. And the three core pillars are here. And that's looking at it from the perspective of industry, trade and investment. The Nigerian Industrial Revolution Plan, the NIRP, focus on MSMEs and also focus on technology, digitalization of the Nigerian economy. So these are three key things that come under the diversification and growth plan. The NIRP, of course, focuses on industry, the big, MSMEs, the medium and the small, and then using technology to drive all of this. And again, I mean, the slides ahead will show some of the specific things being done in each of these sectors. Under the NIRP, what the main things that are being done is creating deliberate catalysts for selected high growth and high potential sectors, providing tax breaks, co-funding, and export promoting incentives for these sectors. 6 special economic zones, 1 per geopolitical zone, with full infrastructure and constant power, focus on attracting international and local manufacturers with proven capacity in need of enabling environments and industrial parks playing to the strength of each region. So those are specific things being done under the NIRP to make sure that the enabling environment to support industry is presented. For MSMEs, again, this is also a bedrock of the growth and diversification plan. We all know that MSMEs form the bedrock of an economy and, you know, very good for job creation, for innovation, and for unemployment as well, to tackle unemployment. And so what is the government doing in this area? I think I've gone ahead. Okay. What's the government doing in this area? It's looking at policy for MSMEs to create the proper enabling environment. It's looking at capacity to provide to the MSMEs or to the SMEs so that they can operate successfully and sustainably and also to grow. It's looking at access to finance situations by providing policies and programs that will create opportunities for them to access finance, access to markets and linkage opportunities so that they can be on the supplier and distributor value chains for these bigger companies. On the third pillar, digitalization, technology is seen as the bedrock to drive, as the key driver to drive the economy. So for the NIRP plan and for the MSMEs, technology is seen as a key driver for these programs. Very quickly, I'll go into, so what are the opportunities? What are the opportunities? What are the areas to focus on? What are the innovation opportunities? Now, you may ask, given what we know now, that where are the opportunities beyond oil? And again, referring back to the NIRP, I would actually encourage that we download the NIRP and take time to study it, because it's one of the playbooks that this government is currently executing for its growth and diversification agenda. The government has moved from the planning stage and it's now in execution. So the NIRP does provide a lot of information on the areas, the key areas of focus. Very quickly, I'll go into some priority programs that falls under the NIRP. There's a stimulus package, a stimulus package which is targeted to boost MSME and industrialization initiatives. This has just been revamped. We just revamped the pioneer status criteria and regime to enable greater access and more direct impact on the economy. A lot of MSME funds are also in the market. As you know, this ministry oversights a few government agencies. The Bank of Industry is one of them. And the Bank of Industry is very focused on supporting MSMEs. There are various funds that are in the market that support innovation in different sectors. a solar fund has been recently launched at the Bank of Industry. There is the creative sector fund. There is the fashion fund. There is the gender fund. There are state matching funds. And there are quite a few things at the Bank of Industry, which I seem to stress upon because that's where I work, that also support the MSME plans for MSME transformation plans for the industry, for this ministry. I'll focus on one example and then I'll round up. Again, when we say where are the opportunities and what are the innovations that, when you say innovation or you say opportunities, where are they? The example here is on the agriculture and agro-allied sector, which is a very important one, just like the others. But I'll just stay a little on it. The agric train is moving, and if you look closely at this, it talks about different crops, and then the red box highlights demand and supply. I believe that for all of the crops listed here, the demand exceeds the supply, and it's not strange to all of us that Nigeria is a net importer of food and food-related products. The numbers are staggering, and so there's a clear need that we cannot be import. This is a sector that we just cannot be import dependent. I went to a forum recently, and the president of the Africa Development Bank was there, and he talked about Africa as a net importer of food and food commodities. And he says the only way out of not only the food shortage and all the issues we face concerning food, the only way out of it as a nation is that Africa must feed Africa. And I just want to bring that here as well, that for food, Nigeria must feed Nigeria. And we have to get to a stage where we are producing and even exporting our staples, our vegetables, our fruits, and all what have you. So this is a sector where there's clearly a need. To get into and get right. So again, there's a lot of support from the government. The CBN has a lot of intervention funds for agriculture and agro-allied sector. BOI also has quite a strong product in this area, and so they work closely with businesses in this sector. Agriculture also, is now top list in the priority sectors. So there is a lot of support from the government, and tax breaks are also very evident in this sector. I'm not going to really focus on these next few slides, but basically what they do is it looks again at the three different pillars, the NIRP pillar, and it talks about some of the things that are being done to support industry in this case, export and expansion grant, there's a tomato roadmap, textile and garments action plan, leather policy, the Nigerian automobile industrial development plan. These are big support to big industry that this government is currently undertaking. On the MSME, also, it talks again some of the actions that are in progress. So for MSMEs, it's what are we doing in terms of standards, access to funding, access to finance, capacity building, training to the SMEs, and also partnerships, like having vocational training for people to also stay in this sector. For the digital economy, what are we doing? What is the progress so far? There is the establishment focusing on the agri sector as an example. How does all of this tie together? So again, the current environment that we're facing now is that of a crisis, but we all know that a crisis too good an opportunity to waste. There is opportunity in what the crisis presents. This government is now in execution, full execution phase. The planning stage is over. And so we're now in a full implementation on a plan that can transform the economy and focused on delivery. Perspective matters. The short-term headwinds should not becloud the fundamental attractiveness of the market. So we need to be ready, and we need to take advantage. And also, this is a government that seeks to partner with private capital and to diversify and grow the economy. So that is where I will stop in conclusion. And I thank you all for listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ma. Can we put our hands together one more time for her? All right, so we're just a few more minutes away from the question and answer session. We're going to take one last presentation from our showcase company, Andela. And we're just going to listen to Mr. Shani Suleiman, the country director of Andela, speak to us for about 5 to 7 minutes. Can you put your hands together as we receive him this afternoon?
Good afternoon, everyone. So I will try not to use the slides. I'll flip through them towards the end. I think we have a bit of a time constraint. Thank you for inviting me to speak. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm actually very impressed that I heard technology mentioned by almost every speaker on there. That's amazing. But I'm also scared because we should have thousands of technology companies. For a country with our size, our population size, we really should have thousands of technology companies, but we don't. And something we noticed at Andela a few years ago was that all the hopes and dreams and aspirations we have as a country and as a continent are likely not going to come true in terms of technology. Because unlike system specs, we don't have many other technology companies that will build the future. So who is going to build this technology future we all speak about? If the schools are not teaching people, and if there are not many companies that can be the training ground for all these entrepreneurs and future technologists, who will do it? And so that's why we exist today as Andela. So our vision is very simple. We want to create the technology leaders of Africa. And so our goal to do that is to produce 100,000 developers within 10 years. How do we do that? And now I'll use the slides. We do 3 things. We do a lot of things, but there are 3 main things. The first thing is we find the top 0.7% of technologists today. We make them do a lot of rigorous tests, and then we bring them into Andela. We hire them full-time. The second thing we do is we shift them into world-class developers. And so it's through a 6-month intensive training that we do in-house. And the third thing we do is we found partners in the US and other countries that need technologists on their teams. And so we put them as team members working on very high impact projects for these companies. So that is what we do in a nutshell. And what we've seen is that in the beginning, the biggest challenge we had was convincing people that Africans could be world-class technologists. It was extremely difficult. So you call somebody in the middle of Michigan and they don't want to hear anything you have to say. The minute you get to the part where you say Nigeria, software developer, they hang up. Because it's either someone's uncle is asking them to send money in, or it's some kind of prince who's trying to do business with them. And these are things we were hearing for real. And so we got a lot of dropped calls. And fast forward 2 years, we've only been around for 2 years. Fast forward 2.5 years later, we're working with about 60 companies in the US, working on very high impact projects. Companies like IBM, Google, Microsoft. So today, Andela is about 227 people strong in Nigeria. We were based in Yaba for a long time. We've recently had to move because we don't have any space in Yaba that can take that many people. And so now we're based in Ilupeju at the former Akintola Williams Deloitte building. And really, Andela is founded on one basic principle, which is that brilliance is evenly distributed globally. It's gender agnostic, it is race agnostic, it is sexual preference agnostic. It is really dependent on what you know and what you do. And because we believe that, we then believe that if that is the case, a few crazy young Nigerians can actually be viewed as technology leaders globally. And today we're breaking down barriers one company at a time and having CEOs of companies in the US writing articles about how their latest VP of engineering is a Nigerian based in Nigeria. So very quickly, I think the idea here is, it's new opportunities, new frontiers. What are some of the amazing things going on in this space? Within the next 2 years, there are a few things that we're excited about. The first one is we're quickly becoming a really great place to work. So probably 50% of my job is making sure that we have a culture that is toxic to people that don't belong to it and very enticing to people that do. And so we have a place that people love to come every day. Everyone's excited to be there, and they bring their all every day. We're all aligned around this single vision that we're going to produce the leaders that will drive technology in this country. And so it's very easy for people to decide whether they want to be part of that mission or not. So that is one of the biggest goals we have, is to be the best place to work in Africa. The second thing is to grow aggressively. So if we want to reach our goal of 100,000, we're only about 400 today in Nigeria and Kenya. So we have a lot of work to do. And so we're quickly scaling up. One of the things we're going to do is start to figure out ways to create distance learning. And so anybody, anywhere in the world, but particularly anywhere in Africa, can go from not knowing much about software to becoming an entry-level software developer by using our free courses online. And so we're working on that this year. That's one of the big priorities for us. Thank you. The other is to go to new locations. So far, we've been very Lagos-heavy within Nigeria. And I think the challenge is we know we have demographics within Nigeria that are underserved and not really sort of attended to. So one of our goals is we'd like to increase our diversity within Nigeria, religious diversity, cultural diversity, and gender diversity. Technology globally is a very male-heavy industry. And so if you look at Silicon Valley, you probably find somewhere between 4 and 10% women participation in technology. We're very proud to say that we're right now at 18%, and our goal is to reach 35% female participation. And the last thing is we'd like to develop a lot of intellectual property. So one of the reasons why companies are very valuable, and I think Mr. Awara can speak to this, is when you develop intellectual property that gives you advantages over other people. And so one of the things we want to do is we're positioning ourselves as an elite engineering organization based in Africa. And so that means building real products that people can use. And so within the next year or two, we'll start building actual products that we can put on the market and people can try out for both SMEs, for individuals, for enterprises, maybe for government as well. And that's very, very exciting. So I think 4 key takeaways from me from this experience. The first one is find a problem that somebody really, really, truly wants to solve. And I think what I find, before this, I'd done a lot of management consulting and strategy. I found that a lot of people have business ideas, but when you ask them what problem they're solving, they can't tell you. And if you ask them who wants to pay for this problem to be solved, they also can't tell you. The second thing is create something that solves that problem very, very well. And if you can, do it better than anyone else. But you don't even have to do it better than anyone else. Just start off by doing it well. The third is find a few crazy people who will join you. And so at Andela today, we have a lot of weird people like myself. They're kind of misfits. And when you meet them, you realize that there's something just slightly off about them. So find a few crazy people that would like to join you on this journey. And the last thing is, pray and work magic, because it's almost never easy. So thank you very much for having me here. Have a nice day.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so I sat there listening to him, and I don't know. I think I've been in the wrong job all along. If I can't do something about it, I'm going to get my son to do something about it. All right. So now we're going to go into the question and answer session. This is where we kind of begin to wrap things up and bring it home. We've heard a lot of great things said this morning and afternoon. And I know that people have questions. We received loads of questions. A number of our speakers are in a hurry. They need to leave. So we're going to try and keep this very brief as possible. So if you just put your hands together with me this afternoon, please let's welcome Mrs. Winelli on stage. All right, keep clapping, keep clapping. There, please. Oh, sorry, please sit there. Thank you. All right, Mr. Barrow, can you come, please? here. Mrs. Adeniji, please can you join us? Thank you. Put your hands together for her. And Dr. Salami. Please sit here. Please sit there, sir. All right, so this is how it's going to go. Some of the questions that you have sent in are going to come on the screen. We'll take as many as we can within the time that we have. A few people are going to be around after the event, so you may be able to ask them whatever question you've posted that we haven't been able to ask. Our showcase companies are participating in the exhibition after, so you can hang around and ask them questions, okay? All right, are we ready? Okay, so Mrs. Adeniji, I have a story about the minister, and I was really looking forward to having him here to ask him that question. I'll ask him next time that I see him. So he started his career in a company where I also started my career, which is Arthur Anderson. And but he left maybe about 10 years or 12 before I joined, right? And the legend that we had then was that when he's a medical doctor, when he wrote the accounting professional exams, he came first all the time. And when he finished and said, this exam is an exam for, not his exact words, but this is just easy peasy, okay? And so I got into the company, heard this legend, and I, accountant, wrote my final stage 2 times. Okay, so when I heard about this story, and I said, okay, well, maybe it's not so easy peasy. When I see Dr. Enalama, I'm going to ask him how he did it. So you can please help me ask him. When next I see him, I will get an answer, all right? Okay, so first question to you, Ma. We've seen all of those things that you said about the Nigeria Industrial Revolution plan and all of that, you know. I was playing around on the internet about the last 2-3 weeks preparing for this event. I've seen the NIRP, I've seen the zero oil policy and program. There's something on the website of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture about an agricultural roadmap, you know. But reading all of those documents, right, the reality does not match the content of those documents. When are we going to get there from a government perspective?
Okay, well, the first part of your question, I'm sure when you see him, he'll be in a better position to answer that.
Yes,
incidentally, I was also an alumni of Arthur Anderson.
All right.
At the same time, we started at the Honorable Minister and I started at Arthur Anderson on the same day.
All right. Interesting. Okay.
But that's not the focus of the question. You're asking that with all the plans that the government has, and you know, on NRP, on MSMEs, and all of that, when do we start seeing traction, or when do we start seeing the results?
Absolutely.
As I said, again, first of all, the presentation I made was actually what the Honorable Minister was going to present today. So it's, you know, his answer might be different, but just our answer from my own perspective. So it's my answer and probably not the minister's, the Honorable Minister's answers. Is that the planning stage is done, and so the pieces, you know, to make this happen. So for the NIRP, it's still, the plan is out, but it's still going to take execution and enablers like the Bank of Industry, for example, where the Bank of Industry takes a key role in supporting that part of the industry. And what do you need to survive? You need a proper enabling environment. You need power, you need finance, you need policies that help you. Now, so it doesn't stand in one place. There has to be a coming together, and that is happening. Now, will we go out into the market and see the results immediately? The answer is no. It is going to take time for it to take effect. But I believe that the fundamentals are already being instituted or have been instituted, and we'll begin to see the outcome of that. Some slower than others. So when you take something like power, for example, which I cannot speak to, I am sure that there are also things going on. For example, if you had the Ministry of Power, the Minister of Power represented here, I'm sure they would be able to tell you very clear steps as to what is being done to address that. So the enabling environment is being created, and so it will forge ahead. For MSMEs as well, it is clear that, I mean, that is the biggest buzzword right now. And I think for a lot of us here, when we think about innovation, when we think about what we want to do, and when we think about being entrepreneurial, it's going to fall into that MSME space. And so there's a lot of support even as we speak right now. It is going to take time for MSMEs to thrive. It also takes a lot of things falling into place. Finance is one thing. Everybody says finance, but if you have finance and you don't know what to do with it, you're going to fail. So finance is one piece of it. There's capacity. You know, what does it take? There's financial literacy. What do I do with the money? How do I grow my business? There's understanding how to find off-takers, markets, and all of that. So again, it's going to take time. There's no silver bullet. It's not going to happen overnight. So we're not going to wake up tomorrow and find out that everything is working. It is going to take time, but I believe that this government is doing all it can to support it. And I think that as entrepreneurs, we also have to be very, we have to be out there and be very hungry for information. We have to be very hungry to know what is going on out there. What are the things that we need? What are the enablers that we need to support our businesses? So they have to be out there. And I believe if they have their ears to the ground, they will be able to pick the pieces and we'll begin to see the results.
All right. Thank you very much, Ma. Dr. Salami, my next question is for you, sir. So we hear when you were presenting and then we read government reports about the economy and all of that, we hear inflation is around 18%, below 20% basically. But when we go into the market, right, I think a few days ago, somebody posted the price list of cars from a car company on the internet, and you saw prices of everything, bacon, toothpaste, cars, and all that have almost kind of like doubled, or the 50% increase. And so this 18% and all this 50% and 100% increase that we're seeing on the road, how do we connect them together?
Well, to connect them together, you need to understand very clearly, when I say 18%, what exactly was I measuring? Nigeria has a statistical institution that is responsible for producing this data. And they create a basket, supposedly for the average Nigerian. Now, problem is, no such person exists. So that basket does not match that for any of us. Now, it's not a Nigeria-specific problem. Around the world, no country has a basket that matches the basket of anybody, because it's a composite basket. It takes the composition, it's supposed to address a representative sample. And the question is, none of us as an individual person is representative. However, when you must also look at this data and understand it from a slightly different perspective. When we ended 2015, inflation, in other words, the rate at which prices rise, was under 10%. It was about 9.5. By the time we ended 2016, it had risen to almost 19%. In other words, the rate at which prices rose had doubled. Let me repeat that. The rate at which prices rose had doubled. And so if anybody tells you that the price of something doubled, well, you can already immediately tie that back to the data that's available. So in other words, it's not as if the data is wrong. The data is absolutely not wrong. The rate of increase has certainly doubled. It's as simple and as straightforward as that. Indeed, when you were saying, oh, they put up the price of bacon and the like, I got the rudest shock of my recent life last night. Somebody sent me a list of car prices. And I remember that 4 years ago, if you wanted to buy a Toyota Corolla, it was about under 4.5 million. The price list that was sent to me shows the top end of a Corolla at 21 million. Now, indeed, the person then says to me, all our children are going to have to be multimillionaires in order to be able to buy cars. Now, remember I made the point in my conversation with you earlier about affordability now being a problem. Because people are now going to have to start thinking through, so how do I deal with the issues of affordability? So back to your question, that inflation is rising is certainly the case, and it is absolutely reflected in what we see in the marketplace. Indeed, he goes to the market quite regularly, and I'm sure that what I have said is a reflection of what she sees.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. All right, Mrs. Nwuneli, my next question is for you. So we've been told that agriculture is a growing sector, and people have been encouraged to invest there over and over. I know that in your presentation you also tried to do a bit of that. So are there particular areas to focus on, or should all of us just go and buy land and plant cassava and pineapple to make pineapple jam?
Well, the first thing I said when I was speaking was that agriculture is not only farming. And you've fallen right back into that stereotype with your question. So I would say that everyone has to figure out what they're passionate about. So you're an accountant, right?
Yep.
You mentioned you're an accountant.
Yes.
So you have financial services skills. So what can you do in the sector? There are a range of skills you bring to the table. Is it financing folks in agriculture? Is it saying you're going to become a specialist in auditing companies in the agriculture sector? All of us have to look at our skill set and figure out where we can add the most value in that sector. And you have to be driven by what you're passionate about. I've been passionate about food processing for a long time, but not as someone who's going to plant the food, but someone who's going to ensure that I can put in place the systems and structures to enable a company to grow. I want to say I didn't study agriculture. I'm not a food technologist. I'm not a biochemist. But what I was able to do was put together people who have that passion and empower them to lead. And I want to underscore the point that when we're setting up our organization, we realized we didn't have those skills. My husband is a finance person, I'm a strategy person, but on our board, we found people who had the skill set to complement us. And the weakness, where we were weak, they were strong, and together we're able to set that up. So everyone has to do a skills assessment for any sector you're going to go into. What do you bring to the table? What is your passion? What is your drive? Who do you know that you can pull on board? And then launch it. But there has to be a problem you're trying to solve. It has to be demand driven. If not, you're going to fail.
Thank you very much. I think that's an excellent answer. Okay, Mr. Obaru, my next question is for you. And it says that you have gone from selling software to creating software, and you have become a leading service provider in Africa. How did you manage the transition and identify unique and valuable software to create?
Thank you very much. Before I answer that question, just a little comment on what Dr. Salami said when he was talking about skyrocketing prices. I saw a joke recently in social media, and somebody said, look, the price of bacon has gone very high, and so what do we do? And somebody suggested that maybe it's time to change strategy and declare ceasefire with mosquitoes. No more war. Let's have a peace discussion. Now, back to the question, how do we identify unique and valuable software? The thing really is that in system specs, most of the things we have developed actually came out of what I may call our own immediate challenges. Funny enough, it was a case of, look, what are the pains we are going through as an organization? And if we can find a solution to our own problems, chances are other people going through the same challenge would need the same solution. So yes, we started with a foreign software, and when we started growing as an organization, we needed a payroll for our own operations. And then thereafter, we needed to monitor the performance of our staff. We needed to keep track of people going on training, leave, and all of that. So we developed an HR application, added the HR to the payroll. And again, after a while, we discovered that we needed to be sending this to the banks. Initially, because you are not a large organization, all your staff are in 2 or 3 banks. But there was a time in this country, believe it or not, we had about 80 banks. So it was a case of how do you send a payroll to each of these banks? And that was how we started working on Remitter to pay salaries across different banks. Now, having finished payment of salaries, we went for a presentation somewhere, a multinational. And they liked Remita. This was about 2005. They liked the product. And then the expatriate finance director now asked one parting question. He said, in as much as I like this software to automate the processing of my payroll, it would unwittingly create another challenge for me. I will continue to pay my vendors manually. And that means I'll be operating two systems, manual and electronic. I don't want it. We lost that deal. On our way back from Ikeja, we started thinking, how do we begin to pay vendors, take this through different approvals within the organization? And that's how we added vendor payment to the application, and on like that. So most of the things we've done would either be things which we identified that we need, or when we fail in the marketplace, most of the time, you just don't dismiss the reasons. We see if it is something we can address. And by God's grace, that's how we've been able to trudge forward.
All right, Mrs. Winelli, the next question is yours. And the person asking says, in a small business, what do you look out for in employing the best managers? I've had too much overhead from hiring and firing managers. I need help.
Well, I would tell you the biggest challenge to starting and running a business in Nigeria is people. And it takes, number one, a lot of prayer, grace of God. But I would say there are some practical tips. The first is you have to determine what type of culture you're building. And for me, a culture of excellence, a culture of integrity, which I mentioned in my presentation. So you have to look for those type of people. In your interview process and in your screening process, you have to give the right questions, you have to screen, and then I ask people to actually spend a day or half a day working in the organization. And through that experience, you get to test them. Now, if you're a consulting firm, we have a consulting firm, Sahel Capital, they actually do the work that they would be doing if they work there. And so you see whether they can write, whether they can engage, how they interact. At Leap Africa, we actually ask them to start as volunteers. If they're not employed, come as a volunteer. And many people sign up to be a volunteer because they want to gain experience. If you catch something, a trait that you cannot tolerate, you give a warning. If that warning doesn't work, you just ask them to leave. You escort them into their destiny. I believe in escorting people into their destiny. I don't have a problem firing inefficient or unethical staff and have zero tolerance for unethical behavior. Now, with Ace Foods, I went to Ace Foods 4 times last year. But I have a pulse on everything going on. We found a fantastic general manager. And early on, we invited him to sit on the board and we gave him equity. And this is a 34-year-old Nigerian guy. He happens to be Yoruba, not Igbo. I don't know his mother or his father, but he's committed to the company the way that anybody would. But to get that guy, we went through 4 general managers that were very quick, in quick succession. Because you look at someone's resume, they come recommended. It doesn't mean they have the values and they're willing to grow and work in an organization. So give them credit, give them exposure, step out of the limelight and let your people shine. And you'll be able to attract the best people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So basically, values is very important. Okay, Dr. Salam, the next one is for you, sir. And the question is, what is your recommendation to eliminate the inefficiency of the forex market affecting import-dependent businesses? Somebody is asking you for the minutes of your last MPC meeting.
Well, I knew I would get into trouble at some point. It might as well be now. Well, I think essentially to eliminate inefficiency, it's just to implement what we have put in place. If you go back, you will find that in May 2016, the Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee, in its communique after the meeting in May, agreed to move to a liberalized foreign currency market. In June, I think it was 20th of June of the same year, the guidelines were emplaced and the market started. The problem that I see is that because of the acute pressures on the supply side, we have not implemented that framework as emplaced, as articulated. And so, for me, what needs to happen is to, implement as articulated. It's as straightforward as that. And I'm not the only one who takes that view. It's a liberalized FX market. Markets will determine things. I know people are worried that if you were to allow markets to determine the FX rates now, at what level, if the currency depreciates, to what level will it depreciate? Truth ain't got the foggiest idea. But there is nothing which also says that it must depreciate. Let's understand that. Economics is actually very helpful in trying to determine the fair value of a currency. There's something called the purchasing power parity. Now, if you apply that in saying, okay, what should be the fair value for the naira? My sense is, from rough back of the envelope calculation, and believe me, really rough back of the envelope calculation, that the value of the naira today should probably be somewhere between between 307 and about 325, depending on the assumptions that you make. As I'm sure you all know, all economists come with various assumptions, so depending on which ones you like. Now, if that is the case, then it gives you a ballpark within which to expect the currency to play around. If it's playing outside that ballpark, then you need to understand why. And my own sense right now is that in the interbank, there is a problem of access. A market is only a market when you can go there, exchange for your money whatever goods, or get for your money whatever goods you're asking to buy. As of today, access to FX is rather difficult. It's got to be, it's being administratively managed. There's a new rule, which is the 60-40 rule. Yeah. And from what I am told, these things are, they're trying to manage it well, but they're creating, it's still difficult. And so once there's a difficulty, then we've got to figure out, once there's difficulty, you've got to figure it out. Once there is a margin, the only market you can take your money to pay, they give you your currency, you go, is the parallel market. And most people say, oh, why should the parallel market, which is the smaller market, wag the bigger market, which is the interbank market? My view is it's the only market where you have price discovery. And once it's the only market where you have price discovery, even those who have access at the official rates, at the interbank rate, are pricing as though they were buying in parallel. And it's not wrong. Don't get me, it's not wrong. Don't tell me, but you bought it. If you buy it now at 305 and you are sure that tomorrow, if you go back again, you will buy it at 305, then you price at 305. If you buy it at 305 today and you are unsure that it will be 305, it's not because the price has changed, but because your access doesn't exist, then your best price, standard accounting, replacement cost pricing, you will price as though you bought in the parallel market so as to be able to replace the same volume if you go to the parallel market. So that's the fundamental problem that, for me, the framework is there. It's to find a way to implement that framework efficiently. And I'm happy that the Honorable Minister, in the presentation made on his behalf, did allude to these issues in his presentation.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Okay, so I have this question for every one of you. And it says, the theme is New Frontiers, New Possibilities. Can each of the panelists please give us one business opportunity they've identified that will truly break boundaries in Nigeria? Wow, this is a very interesting question. So who wants to go first? Would you try, Ma?
Yeah, I think New Frontiers, New Possibilities. I would still like to focus on the agriculture and agro-allied space. And I say this because, as we said, this is Nigeria is a net importer of food. Today we have most people trying to go into the professional 9-to-5 kind of work area, but it is time to step out of that. Agriculture and agro-processing, not just being in the farm, but actually adding value is an area to look at. This is because the demand is just there, and it's clear that there's a gap that can be filled. So I would encourage for young people, for old people, I think if you're looking for like new opportunities, a new career, a new beginning, a new start, I would say agriculture and value-added agro-services. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So, as I mentioned, when you look out of your window every day, you see new opportunities. But I'll make a plug for one, which is that LEAP is about 14 years old, and we've been working, training, providing coaching and services for young people through our Youth Leap, Biz Leap, and we've just launched eLeap. So I think there's a huge opportunity in e-learning. Okay. E-learning, I think a couple of people mentioned e-learning today, and Della mentioned e-learning.
And we have about, I think we have 2 e-learning companies
exhibiting. E-learning is huge. And I'll just say something about e-learning. So we've been teaching ethics at LEAP for about 14 years. We wrote 2 books on ethics. And for the first time, we put our ethics curriculum, which is a 2-day program, into a 1-hour CD, where you have an interactive opportunity to learn about ethics and test your own ethical compass. And then you'll be amazed at how that can transform learning. And so I think anything that you can teach somebody, think about how to compress that through e-learning and recreate that learning experience. And I think the world is your oyster. All the vocational skills we're trying to teach, all the knowledge gaps we have in society, I think we can really propel education through e-learning.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Now, when I hear this question, most of the thing I hear most of the time is agriculture, everybody go to the farm, we need to eat. And I have a slightly different opinion. There is this saying that to a carpenter, every problem is a nail and the solution is a hammer. So for me, when you ask this kind of question, I can only think technology. I can only think, at this point, electronic payments. The way I look at it is that, take agriculture, for instance. Increasingly, we are beginning to have robots. Okay. And robots, anything they can do, ultimately they will do it cheaper, they will do it better. So, recently I was reading about target of $100 price for robots that will be able to do some basic farming. By the time you have a $100 robot that can do basic farming, you just buy a few of them, throw them into the farm, they will do a better job than employing people who will steal your products. Okay. So I'm thinking more in that technology direction, that anything that would capitalize on technology. 2, another thing we should remember, when mobile phones first came, many people ignored them. They thought, oh, just a phone, something to make calls. But gradually, telephones became competition to just about every industry. First to go were people who keep diaries. I mean, this time of the year, you would have been seeing diaries all over the place. Every bank, gifts, diary, calendar. All of that now, you use your mobile phone. Wristwatches, not many people buy wristwatches as before, because in fact, most teenagers now don't even bother to carry wristwatches. You have the phone. Or is it for torchlight? The phone will do that. Calculator, the phone will do that. Camera, the phone will do that. So you just find a lot of industries were quietly attacked by this quiet competitor. If anybody wants to go into anything now, I will say the same thing is about to happen in the electronic payment space. The reason is simple. Just about every industry, you need to make payments. And the way you make payments begin to define how you operate in that industry. Insurance, you'll now find that just about anybody will be able to offer insurance online. Banking, more people will be able to do different forms of banking, giving loans online. And anything you're buying, go to a marketplace shop. Instead of keeping your big shops, a competitor will just open with a marketplace and begin to operate at a lower cost than you. So you just find that the new economy will rest on electronic payments. And like I said, maybe because I'm a carpenter, to me, the problem is a nail, the solution is a hammer. Think technology.
All right, thank you, sir. Dr. Salami.
Well, for me, there are two massive opportunities that, whether we like it or not, somebody will have to take. Okay, so I mean, education and human capital development will always be. You don't have a population where almost half of it is under the age of 15 and begin to worry what's going to happen about human capital. There is already a fundamental problem now about remedial education. A lot of people have gone to school through whom school hasn't gone. And somehow, remediation of that must take place. But the opportunity that, for me, is very glaring. Imagine, when onions get harvested, a bag is about 1,500. 6-7 months later, a bag is 45,000. Let me repeat in case you didn't hear it well. At harvest, it's about 1,002 to 1,005. 6-7 months later, you are looking at 45,000. It speaks to the point about storage in agriculture. I'm not interested in, the farmers can do their farming. But in Nigeria today, the farmer takes the risk of production, takes the risk of storage, takes the risk of transport, and then faces market risks as far as prices are concerned. What we are going to see increasingly happen is a reallocation of those risks. There's something called called AFEX, the commodities exchange. Now, it's moving slowly, but it is going to fundamentally change over the years ahead the dynamics of agriculture if they do it the way they are supposed to do it. So, two certain opportunities: human capital development, especially around education, and remedial education in particular, and agriculture as far as storage is concerned. Do any of those two, you might retire sooner than you think.
All right, thank you very much, sir. All right, so we've run out of time. I'm going to have to let our panelists go. I know there's still many more questions. If you hang around a bit, you might catch any one of them who is available to be able to ask them a question, or just wander around. We will find a way to answer the questions for you. So can we put our hands together for our very extremely impressive panelists and speakers today? Thank you very much, ma. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, so we're beginning to wind down gradually, okay? But if you haven't heard anything today, in summary of everything that everybody has said is this. So where is the opportunity? Where's the new frontiers? It's about finding a problem and solving it, okay? Finding a problem and solving it profitably. That is where your new possibility is, and that is where your new frontier is, okay? Now, just a few more, just to let you know how things are going to go from here. We're about 15-20 minutes away from running off this segment of the event. If you look at the back of of the auditorium, we have set up an exhibition booth there. We have a number of companies that are exhibiting things. So we have some consultants there who help small and medium enterprises to grow. We have some fashion people who are in the fashion business. We have some people who are in the technology business. A number of our showcase companies are also there. Leap Africa has a booth. System Spec has a booth. So we just need you to go there and go and check out what is going on there. Have conversations. And while all of that is going on, right, we want you to please network and interact with the people who are sitting next to you. Because, so I'm looking at a statistic, very quick statistic that we took when we registered people. So in the room this afternoon, we have over around 65 people who say that they are CEOs, partners, and MDs. Okay, so you might find your next business partner in the room when you talk to people. There are executive directors, there are consultants, all of them in the room. So we need you to please network. And after, please don't go yet. Exhibition hasn't started. We still have one more video and one more, a 10-minute speech by our lead pastor. All right, and after, during the exhibition, we're also going to serve light refreshment. So those will be served at the point. Okay, we're watching one last video, and then our lead pastor, Pastor Godman Akilabi, will give the closing remarks. Okay, so can we roll the video, please?
There is a spirit in me that pushes me to keep trying, that urges me, you can do it, that keeps me creative, that keeps me productive, that keeps me sane.
I make processes easier.
I keep them healthy.
I lift people's spirit.
I bring out our local flavor and make it global.
I simply make them more convenient.
I make people smile. I groom tomorrow's leaders.
What will you do with what you can do? There's a spirit in you.
All right. I hope we've had a great time. If you really have had a great time, I wanted to one more time help me appreciate all of our speakers and the panelists, Mr. Adeniji, Mr. Wonelli, Dr. Salami, and Mr. Obaro. Please, let's do it one more time. Let's appreciate them. Mr. Adeniji, please give our love to the Honorable Minister. We appreciate the kind gesture. Still sending a representative. He actually called me personally to tell me that there was an emergency and all that, which we really understand, and we appreciate all the effort that he has put into being at this event. I will say a prayer before we go. And in a minute, before I say the prayer, I would love to actually encourage everyone that a lot of information has been passed across today. If you feel that you've missed out on any of the speaking points and the issues that have been dealt with, we'll make this available somehow, maybe downloadable. You can listen. Our YouTube channel, Elevation NG, is always there 24 hours. You can pick up some of the materials from our resource center, listen and watch over and again. I believe there is something that is coming out from here that will be a toast in our economy very, very soon. I can't hear your amen. At the Elevation Church, we've seen the birth and the rebirth of many businesses. One of our showcase businesses today, which is Farm Crowdy. It was an idea given to, the young man who founded it is just a technology person. He sings in the choir at the Elevation Church, but he's been a technology person all his life, and he's been able to start a few technology companies, and Farm Crowdy happened to be one of them. It's created opportunities in just a short space. I still remember that I was at the back of the auditorium at that preteens church the first time he mentioned it to me. We had an Greek seminar, and he was attending the Greek seminar. That was last year. And then he mentioned something about this Farm Crowdy idea. And today Farm Crowdy is a reality. And the day he also told me that Farm Crowdy got an investment of, is it $100,000 or something? I was shocked. But it's just a simple idea that this guy was bold enough to say something about. I connected him with his co-founder who was more experienced, and then he started picking a few people in this church, now works, with him. And from that, it's becoming something that we can say we're proud of. So my huge encouragement is that you've heard from the masters. You've heard, where the opportunities are. You've heard what should be the next focus. I want you to make sure that you take practical steps at making something happen in 2017. Finally, the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 9 and verse 11, it says the race is not to the swift. The battle is not always won by strong people. Men of wisdom or whatever will not always have bread to eat. But the Bible says that time and chance happen to them all. I believe that in 2017, time and chance will happen to you. My God will order your steps to be at the right place at the right time, to have the right discussions that will bring you to your eureka moment in the precious name of Jesus. But my encouragement also is that you stay close to God. If God is in charge of time and chance, then it means that he will specially organize it for some people who pay attention to him. So knowledge is good. All that we have shared is good. I'm happy at one thing, that's that unlike last year's forum, we're not leaving with a gloomy outlook. Last year by the time we finished the economic outlook, I had to do a great job at rounding off by quoting a lot of scriptures, encouraging people, make sure you smile, and all that. And people were walking out, dragging themselves. But today it's different. We're walking out, smiling, walking out, believing that there's something great ahead of us. And in the midst of the crisis, huge opportunities will show up. And my prayer is that God will order your steps to lay hold on the right, right opportunity at the right time, and you will get the right result. But seek God in 2017. Get closer to God. Ask questions about how you can improve on your spiritual experience. Don't stay on the same spot, chasing money, but forgetting that your spirit has to be alive and well, connected to Jesus, such that you will be able to see things from the right perspective. Because if you see things only from money perspective, money develops wings and it can fly away. And when it does fly away, you'll be left alone without any help. And the greatest help you can get is the help that comes from above. You remember the psalmist says, I will look up to the hills, from whence comes my help. My help comes from the Lord, from above. And so as we pray, I want you to look up to God and make sure that you, in 2017, you walk with him. Don't take anything for granted. God has great plans for your life. God has great plans for your business and your family. And it's in vital connection with God that you will get the best of his plans for you. Can I ask that we all stand as we pray? Again, I want to say a big thank you to all of our speakers. I also want to appreciate the organizing committee for the Vantage Forum 2017, led by our home pastor, Tunji Yola. I want to appreciate all the members of the team, Valentine Obedi, Odunsi, Ms. Oshodi, Mr. Meka Olola, Indiana, all the people who participated and made one thing or the other successful. I want to really appreciate you, and I pray that God will continually bless the work of your hand, and water the seed that you have sown into this experience in Jesus' name. If you need any form of prayer, we retail it and we have it wholesale also. It's a church. Forget about all the ambience and all. This is church. Yeah. If you need prayer after now, I will ask that you stay close to exit 6, which is to my left. We have our ministers around. They'll be willing to hold hands with you and pray with you. And that, I mean, very, very seriously. You don't come to the house of bread and leave empty. I hope you understand what I'm saying. And when I talk about bread, I mean spiritual bread. Yeah. So this is the house of bread. And this, the power of God is available here. And it's not religious at all. It's not sensitive to any religion. When the power of God comes upon any man, it changes our lives. So you need prayer, you need any kind of support. I will ask that you move close to exit 6. Some of our ministers will reach out to you there. Can we all bow down our heads? I'd love to just say a final prayer. And as I do that, I will ask, if you're here this afternoon and you're yet to develop a vital relationship with God, it's extremely vital that you pay attention to that. So I'd just like to help you activate that by saying a prayer with you. Let's just activate that by saying a prayer with you. So if you're here this afternoon, you're far away from God. It's not in the scheme of things in your life. And you think you want to bring him into the scheme of things, then you can just say this simple prayer with me. And you develop a relationship with Jesus. And from this point on, you can start to grow that relationship. So if you want to say that prayer with me, can I just ask that you put your right hand on your heart and just say after me. Say, Lord Jesus, I commit my life into your hand. I recognize that I cannot help myself. I ask for your help. Forgive me my sins. Cleanse me from every unrighteousness. Accept me as your son. I'm willing to walk with you. I want to spend the rest of my life in a relationship with you. I accept you today as my Lord and my personal Savior. And I ask that you come into my heart to stay. Thank you for accepting me. In Jesus' name. And everyone say amen. So if you said a prayer with me and you said it from your heart, sincerely, then you can start a growing relationship with Jesus. From today, it will have impact on how you run your life, how you run your family, and how you run your business. If you need further prayers, like I said, if you move to exit 6, the moment the program is over, we'll have our ministers there to attend to you. We have the showcase companies at the back. We have about 20 companies at the back showcasing. Pastor TJ, we have refreshments for everybody. Yeah, where is that? So right here at the showcase, can you just say something to that? Yeah.
Okay, so right at the back, as you're going around looking at the companies, in about another 15 minutes after this ends, we will then set up and start serving refreshments. There are 2 points that we have set up at the back behind the booths. So you will see them. We have waiters going around. You won't miss them.
Okay, so we have waiters all around. It's just going to be a cocktail arrangement. The whole of the back, like I said, we have 20 companies, showcase companies there. You said 15 minutes after roaming around. Then there will be food.
Yes.
All right. Please take my word for it and take Pastor TJ's word for it. 15 minutes. We just want you to focus on looking at the company first before refreshment will set in. So that's not to punish in any way. It's just to separate business from eating. All right. 15 minutes after, then we'll be able to partake of the refreshment. Let's pray. Let's pray together. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity of being a part of Vantage Forum 2017. Lord, we commit the rest of this year into your hand. We ask that you order our steps into the opportunities that you have created for us. Let no one leave 2017 without any tangible opportunities coming our way. In the precious name of Jesus. Lord, as we encounter opportunities, give us the presence of mind and the grace to be able to harness these opportunities. We thank you for life coming into businesses that are dying here because of the information from today. And we ask that you prosper us in all of our ways in 2017 in the precious name of Jesus. Again, we pray for all of our speakers and the work of their hands. We ask that you continually make them shining examples in the industries where they function. And we ask that you bless their families in the precious name of Jesus. As we go, let your presence go with us. We pray your grace over the Elevation Church, that you continue to use this ministry to be a blessing to our generation. We pray for all of our leaders, that you continue to empower them to do what they do well, to the end that the testimony of this church will be that we fulfill our mission, which is to make greatness common. We thank you, our Father, for the activities of today. We commit the rest of the day into your hand. Make it blissful. Let your grace continually abound towards us in Jesus' precious name. God bless you and thank you for coming, and see you at Vantage Forum 2018. God bless you.